Hey everyone, welcome to GameFace, episode 297 on Sifted Games at Sifted.net. I'm Shane Satterfield, your host for the... I'm not going to commit to any length of time for this episode this week. Alongside me to talk about whatever we can about games right now is Matthew Kyle. Matt, oh my gosh, the industry has just ground to a halt.
Yeah, a bit of a shift.
A bit?
And it ain't going to end anytime soon.
Oh, I looked ahead at May, and it's just as bad as April. Here's the thing, Matt. So many gaming companies missed a huge opportunity here.
Yeah.
I mean, it is just wide open for like 2 months for you to release your game, and instead they jammed them all into like January, February, and March. And here's April and May just sitting.
Get that last quarter in that fiscal year.
It's crazy, but yeah, it's so slow right now. You'll see. I mean, we have plenty of topics, and I think the show's going to be good today. But we don't have a lot of games to talk about. You won't believe the game that I played this week, so we had a game to talk about on the show. Mm-hmm. It's really crazy what's going on right now. A couple stories did break this morning, but we didn't have enough time to like get them into
mid-May,
the show.
He's finally going to give in on Elix 2. I can feel it.
I may. Yeah, Matt pitched me that game, like, was it a month and a half ago?
Like a month ago, yeah.
And back then, like, there was actual stuff to talk about. I'm like, yeah, I don't think that made the cut, but now just about anything can make the cut. It's pretty crazy, man. But anyway, as always, we're doing the best we can to bring you guys a great show about the hot stuff in gaming for the week. Let's see, is there any housekeeping I've got for you? I don't think so. We just wrapped up Shane versus Elden Ring. We were doing those streams for the last like 2.5 months every Saturday. Wrapped that up. Finally had somebody, Matt, come into my game and co-op with me. JM Rain, actually. You guys probably know him from chat. He's always giving away subs to the people who show up to watch our live streams. He jumped in and co-opted with me and just wiped the floor with like 2 bosses, and one of them is like this notorious boss that everyone like hates and can't ever beat. I literally just stood back and just like tossed magic randomly, and he just went to work and just...
was this Radon?
Yeah. First the wolf. I don't think the wolf even touched me once he joined. Like, I literally just sat back and just threw like fireballs, and then we fought the... What's her name?
Yeah, the one with all the grad students crawling around on the floor.
Yeah. Both stages of that, because there's that stage with the grad students. And
begins with an R.
Then you go to this weird plane where, and he just crushed all of them. I just kind of stood back and just watched and collected all the runes, so to speak. So that's over. I am thinking about trying to find a new game to start streaming on Saturdays, but I'm going to take a little break.
Babylon's Fall.
No. That's definitely not going to be it. I do want to take a little break because I pretty much lost my entire weekends doing that stream. I curate on weekends as well. And between doing that stream and then getting it into edit and rendering it and getting it ready to publish on Mondays, I was losing like my entire Saturday doing that stream. And I get no time off, so it'll be nice to have a couple Saturdays here in a row while I figure out what I'm going to do next. Any suggestions, by the way, of something you want me to play? There's so many games that I am like halfway through or 2/3 of the way through and I haven't finished yet. Horizon Forbidden West is one of those. Dying Light 2 is one of those. So if there's any big games from the last few months, you're like, hey, I wouldn't mind watching Shane play through those. Just drop those in the comments on the show's archive, and I'll take those into consideration. Because there's definitely nothing coming out here for the next like 6 weeks that I would want to stream on Saturdays. But I do want to take a second to just thank, again, the people who joined those streams and helped me get through the game. You guys gave me a brand new understanding of From Software's games. I definitely played Elden Ring way longer than I've ever played any other From Software game, and I definitely feel like I have a much better understanding of those games now. I don't know that it's changed my opinion of them all that much, but I do understand them far better than I did before. So thank you guys very much. I really appreciate it. You guys jumping on the stream and helping, and even in the comments on the archives, those were actually a really big help. Just having stuff to do before each stream to kind of prepare for the stream to make sure that it went as smoothly as possible. And it did. Like, I walked through the game pretty much based
Ashes
upon...
in the Hourglass says you should play Tunic.
Tunic. That's not a bad one. Yeah. That's also challenging and difficult. Speaking of which, Name That Game is back again this week, and we have another code for Tunic, courtesy of Justin Horman, that we're going to give away at the end of the show. I think I've done a better job with the images this time. We'll see. But I took all your feedback from that as well to try to make sure that you guys don't get it on the first image again. At least I hope not. Before we get going, let's head over to chat and see what's going on with you guys. Hopefully you guys have had a great week. Let's see, there's some Twitch Prime in here. Lots of Wow, you guys are really chatting it up already for the show just starting. It's pretty amazing. Some of this is from my last Elden Ring stream, I think. From Bachby, do you plan to ever play the game alone again and want to have the best magic faith weapon? I do not think I'm going to play Elden Ring anymore. I've got my taste of it at this point. And the other thing, too, I would say, Matt, is that because you go on these kind of wild goose chases for information on the internet or on YouTube, you end up seeing a lot of the game that maybe I didn't really want to see, other than, like, a lot of stuff got spoiled for me, basically. So I feel like I've seen a lot of the game, even though I haven't played through a ton of the game yet, so I'm probably not going to go back and play it. I think I have a pretty good understanding of what it's all about at this point. Someone's saying Breath of the Wild looks like crap. Was there a new Breath of the Wild trailer that was released today?
If there was, I didn't see it.
Oh, we may have missed something, man. Holy crap. Lestevid, thank you for the tier 1 subs, brother. Appreciate that. Yeah, McWomble saying it looks like crap. Weird.
I mean, I don't know. That wouldn't surprise me. It's running on real old hardware.
Yeah. Oh, this is actually, a lot of this stuff is from... Okay.
Now we're very old.
Gregor Galway, thank you for Twitch Prime. Doc Inky, thank you for Twitch Prime. I don't recognize your username. I don't know if you're new, but if you are, welcome to GameFace. Let's see if we got anything else. Lynn Jeff 99, how are you, Jeff? Thank you for Twitch Prime. Swanland, thank you for Twitch Prime. That's awesome. 33 months, man. I really appreciate that. Mellowhack, thank you for the bits. Sound Wizard, thank you for subscribing. That's awesome. Ulfin81, thank you for joining the chat. Looks like the first time you've ever chatted in our stream. That's great. Thanks for joining up. Ian Esquire, thank you for the bits. Mike's Q, thank you for Twitch Prime. Happy post-tax day. That's right. You get your taxes done, Matt?
No, I got an extension.
Oh, you did? Ian Esquire, thank you for Twitch Prime. As I said, Lestevid, thank you for gifting all the subs. And I think that's it. Lestevid, I still don't know how to do Twitch Prime. It's so easy, brother. If you go to any GameFace or Pactor Factor on YouTube, and there are step-by-step instructions there how to do it. Literally step-by-step with links. Every episode, that information is copy and pasted in every episode of both GameFace and Pactor Factor on YouTube. It is very easy. There's like 4 steps, which I think people look at it, they're like, ooh, that seems complicated. It's very simple.
It's just harder on mobile.
Yeah. Like, if you do it on PC, it's very easy.
Do it on a web browser.
Yeah. Do it on your PC instead of your phone. The phone does make it a little more difficult. Mike Q says, shameless plug for tax day? Are you an accountant?
No,
Mike
shameless plug for, I think what he was talking about. He said something when he subscribed.
Who, Mike's Q did?
Yeah. But I don't see it.
He said, hey, all happy post-tax day.
Oh.
Maybe he is an accountant.
Maybe he is an accountant. I don't know. Or maybe he's talking about plugging the Twitch Prime subscription.
Oh, Lesteves says I'm always on my phone. Yeah, it's a pain in the butt to do on the phone, undoubtedly.
Yeah, just because of Twitch's interface doesn't help you on the phone.
Yep. But if you ever are on a PC, it's very easy. And again, the instructions step-by-step are on every episode of Pactor Factor and GameFace on our YouTube channel. So check it out. We'd really appreciate it if you could do it. Yeah, you're just linking. If you have Amazon Prime, you're just linking Amazon Prime to your Twitch account. Mm-hmm. And once you do that the first time, you don't have to do it ever again. It's literally just 2 clicks after that. You go to our channel, twitch.tv/siftedgames, and there's a little drop-down thing on the right-hand side. I think it's purple. You click that, it drops down, and you scroll all the way to the bottom of the drop-down, and there's a little thing that you click there that says free subscription with Twitch Prime. So, very simple. If you can do it, it's awesome. It helps us a ton. It costs you nothing. It's just a free benefit if you're an Amazon Prime subscriber. And most people are. Mm-hmm. And wisely so. I've been a subscriber for 12 years. I've never regretted it. Even though the price keeps going up astronomically. That and Netflix, man. Netflix is really starting to get up there, too.
What is Netflix, like $15 now?
I think it's more than that, actually.
I just agreed to a thing last night when I opened it that said it was going to be like $15.78 per month now.
Yeah. And I'm starting, now that it's getting up there in price, I'm starting to realize that I don't really use it hardly at all anymore.
I don't use it much, but I do use it often enough that I want to have it around. It's like that. It's not that much. Amazon Prime is more, but I get
Amazon
my money out of
Amazon
Prime.
Prime.
Pays for itself in shipping. Yeah.
I should probably be more astute at dropping Netflix for months that I'm not going to use it because Now, there's some shows coming up that I want to watch, like Stranger Things Season 4. I want to watch that and stuff like that. But I get a lot more out of HBO Max, honestly, than any of the services.
I mean, I got some stuff. I've subscribed to the Criterion channel in an annual subscription for like 3 years.
Do you use it?
No.
Yeah.
But like part of it's just like I want to support it.
Right.
Because
that's part of it. But
I've watched a few things on it. But
I'm not concerned about supporting Netflix.
Part of the problem, no.
I've also been a member since they sent DVDs through the mail, so I think I've done my part.
I do like the thing is where they, it was kind of revealed this week. It's like Netflix's most watched stuff is like children's programming and old movies. Yeah, basically like comfort viewing. Like their original programming really does not get much.
They get bumps traction. When it first launches,
and then they just go away.
Yeah,
which is probably why that Netflix stuff only lasts like 3 seasons.
Yeah. Classic TV shows too. You can always see in their trending stuff. It's always stuff I never watch.
When you can see some of the top 10, like Is It Cake was #1 for a while, and now it's not even in the top 10.
I watched half of one episode of that, and I was like, I'm good. Like,
do you know who the host on that is?
He seemed familiar.
So you remember the David S. Pumpkins skit from with Tom Hanks on from SNL?
No, I don't.
It's like David S. Pumpkins. It's like, any questions? Like that thing.
No, I don't remember that.
Weird. That was a big deal.
No, I don't remember that at all.
Anyway, he's the guy who hosts Is It Cake is this tall, skinny skeleton guy in that skit.
That guy seemed weird to me, though.
He is weird. Like he's got a sinister vibe to him in a weird way. And like as you watch, like the 3rd or 4th episode, he starts really, every time something turns out to not be cake, he just stabs it a lot.
Oh,
and I'm like, You're not dispelling the Norman Bates vibes I got off you from the beginning of the series, dude. It's very weird.
That is weird. So anyway, I think that's all our housekeeping. I just told you to cancel your subscription to Netflix, and but I think I'm gonna after Stranger Things comes out, because the other thing that Netflix does is it launches all the episodes at once, which like HBO Max sometimes doesn't do that. You still have to like go every week and watch one episode at a time. I wonder if
they'll keep it, because like the week-to-week model has proven to be more effective.
Yeah.
But you run into the problem that like people consider things that Disney Plus or HBO Max puts up to be appointment viewing, and you don't have that so much with Netflix originals usually.
I saw the new Batman film launch on HBO Max today already. That was surprising to me.
Yeah, they announced that. Well, I think it actually went up yesterday. Like
really?
They moved it up a day.
Yeah, I'm surprised by that.
Now you just got to find 3 hours to watch it.
Yeah. So anyway, no big games to talk about on today's show, but we have tons of interesting topics that I think we're going to have a great discussion on. I think we could talk about anything and have an interesting discussion at this point. We're going to kick things off, though, with Sony First Party Studios and Hideo Kojima, which just seemed like a marriage made in heaven, a match made in heaven, that eventually Kojima Productions would eventually become a part of the Sony umbrella. It would be a first-party studio for PlayStation, and this week, Kojima got a little edgy or whatever and posted this banner image of Sony's first-party studios, and it included his studio. It had art there for Death Stranding. And so people, understandably, were like, well, okay, that means that Sony's going to buy you guys up. And he had to come back and say, no, in fact, we want to be an independent studio, and we're going to continue to be an independent studio. Why do you think Kojima is so reluctant to join PlayStation? Or do you think PlayStation doesn't want to sign Kojima?
I mean, I certainly wouldn't buy Kojima Productions if I were Sony. They haven't proven too much. And I would imagine if I'm Kojima, I want to make a couple bigger hits to make my company worth more so that I make more money when I sell it to Sony. Off the
sale? That's smart. I had not even thought of that angle, actually.
So that would be my guess. Is that Kojima doesn't think the company is valuable enough, or that it could be more valuable when he goes to sell it, and Sony doesn't see the value in buying that company yet, because Death Stranding did not exactly set the world on fire. So I think everybody's in a holding pattern on that one for various financial reasons. The rumor of Sony buying From came up again, though. Like that keeps popping up.
That's another one that makes too much sense.
That does make a lot of sense, yeah. Although I think you would have to go buy the parent company, which
Sony can
at that
afford.
Point, for sure. Like if you can leverage it, why not?
Or you buy it and then you sell off the parts that you don't want.
Yeah, pretty much.
Which probably would make a little more sense. Why do you think PlayStation signed Jade Raymond's new studio, Haven, when essentially all she has is kind of an idea and maybe a working prototype? Because you got to remember, too, that PlayStation basically funded Kojima Productions to be formed and gave Kojima Productions an engine from Guerrilla to build its game on. I mean, without PlayStation, does Kojima Productions exist? Someone probably would have funded it.
Someone probably would have. Maybe it wouldn't have been as extensive as the funding they got for Death Stranding from Sony. But, like, yeah, I think mostly it's just, like, I think whatever Haven is working on is something that I think Sony sees as potentially applicable or helpful to their other projects, too. Whereas I think Kojima's stuff is just Kojima's stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's clear that, like, the work he did on the engine here did help out Horizon Forbidden West. Like, clearly the collaboration did help out Guerrilla.
Yeah, it went both ways. Yeah,
but, like, it sounds like whatever Haven's doing has some kind of further, like, more wide-reaching ideas, or you know, like, you know, the speculation that it might be some kind of, like, new iteration of PlayStation Home or something like that, or something along those lines, or something that could be like a metaverse style thing with PSVR 2. Like, you know, it could go stuff that Haven's working on seems like it will probably go beyond what the game they're making.
Yep.
Whereas,
that's what
like,
it sounded like.
Yeah.
Or it sounded like, because it almost sounded like it's a culturally driven product instead of a gamey product.
Yeah, there's something more esoteric there.
Yeah.
Whereas Kojima Productions, for better or worse, is just making games.
I would also argue that, you know, if I had Kojima and Jade in a room and I'm trying to figure out which one would make a product that would be more viable financially and would be more likely to do better sales-wise, I would probably side with Jade Raymond.
Yeah.
Like, Kojima is creative, and his games are strange and weird, and there's a mystery around them, but they don't always sell.
No, they don't cross the line.
Yeah.
With into that sort of mainstream curiosity. You know, they don't. You know, outside of, like, maybe, I mean, even I guess Metal Gear Solid 1 sort of, but that was a different time. Like, he's never had a breakout hit comparable to, like, Elden Ring.
Right.
Where, you know, Elden Ring sold to, like, 6 million new people.
Yep.
Compared to the previous games, whereas his games, you know, I think a lot of people tried Metal Gear for the first time with Metal Gear Solid 1, but the PlayStation 1 was a very different overall audience than, you know, the PlayStation 5 or the PlayStation 4, and, like, Death Stranding did not break into that. Metal Gear Solid 5 did not break into the
I would argue Metal Gear Solid 5 also was first Metal Gear for a lot of players.
Could be, yeah. But it also wasn't
generation.
Not in a critical mass in the way that...
Well, I think they kind of rejected it. It didn't do great.
Yeah. So, yeah, I until Kojima was, you know, especially because you're not able to, like, sort of tell Kojima to, like, just settle down and make a game.
Yeah.
You know, and
you don't have to, like, freak people out every time you announce something. Like, it's okay to just make a great game. Like,
yeah, like, there's an element of Kojima's approach to this, which is sort of like, you know, a little bit like David Lynch, in that David Lynch just refuses to repeat himself and refuses to, like, explain things and refuses to, like, you know, be held by, like, what trends are. He's going to make whatever he wants. But David Lynch has a lot of really cool ideas, and Kojima just mostly rehashes things he saw in John Carpenter movies when he was 12. Yeah. So, like, those are two different, very different results from a very similar process. And I think you can kind of let David Lynch get away with that in a way that you can't with Kojima, partly because David Lynch's movies don't cost $200 million. Yeah. Like... You know, there's a cost associated with making even something on the level of Death Stranding that just isn't there for a $7 million David Lynch one-off. So
Kojima needs to dial it back and create a game that doesn't take, like, 5 minutes to explain what it is.
Yeah, and remember, like, that part of what's happening with Kojima Productions right now is Kojima's trying to branch out into movie stuff.
Yeah,
and if you get bought by Sony, you are not going to be allowed to do that.
That's true. There's no elevator pitch for Death Stranding that works. You can't ride in an elevator in 45 seconds and explain to somebody what this game is. You just can't.
You could, but there's no way to get across.
You couldn't accurately convey what it is.
Yeah, there's no way you'd make it something anybody wants to see. It's like the guy from Walking Dead delivers packages in a really sad world. Yeah. Like, that's basically all it is.
He cries while he's delivering packages. Yeah, you're right, though. That's about as close as it gets, and that's not intriguing to most people.
No.
Like,
it's a little too close to real life for a lot of people. You know, with the gig economy, it's sort of like, I do this every day. Maybe I don't get eaten by giant oil slicks, but
that's how I pay my cell phone bill every month.
But if you've ever had to do DoorDash in a hailstorm, you're maybe not too far off.
That's a really good point. I wonder if Kojima now is going to try to retcon the game and be like, it's a testament on the gig economy or whatever. Who knows? Yeah, do you think it'll eventually happen that PlayStation will buy Kojima? So Ashes in the Hourglass brought up something.
I don't know.
In chat, he said
I think we need to see what the next game is and whether his movie, stab at being a movie production partner is successful. Because if that works,
he may never come back to games.
I don't think Kojima ever needs to sell at all. But I also don't think that's going to work.
I don't think it'll work. No. Yeah, but if it does, I would be surprised if he's like, you know what, I'm not making games anymore. I'm just going to make films.
No, I'm sure he would let he'd have the team at Kojima Productions making games, but I don't think he would be personally
He would focus on the
much.
films.
Yeah, he'd probably come by and he'd do the George Lucas thing where he just looks at all the stuff and stamps approval things on concept art and then goes and does what he's going to do otherwise.
Ashes in the Hourglass brought up a good point too. He mentioned, and I had kind of forgotten this, that Jeff Grubb from VentureBeat has reported that Kojima is working on something for Xbox, which obviously would mean that there's no way that could work. And if Kojima has his eyes on just reaching more people, it's probably smart to stay independent if you want to make games for multiple platforms.
I think it's good, especially considering how long he was at Konami. It's good to establish a foothold and get a body of work going for the company and sort of really be able to have someone look at it and say, this is what we're capable of giving you. If we, let us in-house, and we will do that, all the time. And so that will raise the value. It'll raise the perceived value and get more people interested in buying him, and it will raise the value of the company that he will reap the benefits of when he sells it. So I think it's just too early to sell. That's the real problem.
Yeah, I mean, they've only been around for how long? But Haven only existed for on paper for 11 months, and they were purchased. It's pretty
whatever
bizarre.
Haven's doing must have some real ramifications here.
It must be a real zinger.
Yeah. It must have more to it than just weird Kojima game number 40.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Are you surprised that Kojima has never made a motion controlled game? Because he tends to if you remember back with was it the GBA that he made? Boktai for where he's just I have this technology, I want to try to make something around the technology.
Yeah, it was more I want to make people go outside is what he wanted.
Right.
He wanted.
He does projects like that sometimes just to test out whatever the new technology is. He never did that with motion controls. Yeah, maybe that's a testament to motion controls more than anything. I don't know, but
I think part of it is that a lot of the motion control stuff was just really underpowered and wouldn't be able to handle this stuff. I can't imagine it didn't cross his mind to do a Snatcher update or something for something like that. I think part of the problem is if you put Snatcher out today, you'd be sued by Warner Brothers because it's literally a Blade Runner steal.
Yeah, you probably wouldn't be able to get away with it now.
Sort of like how Metal Gear 2, all the portraits were just Hollywood actors.
Right.
It was I think Big Boss is Sean Connery and Snake is Mel Gibson from Lethal Weapon with the hair and you
times have changed.
Yeah. You can't just trace Arnold Schwarzenegger movie posters and put them on the cover of an NES game and call it original anymore. Or just copy music. That's one of my favorite things to look for YouTube things where it's old 8 and 16-bit music tracks that are just rip-offs of pop music.
Yeah.
And it's just no one thought anyone would care enough to even think about, the guy who decided to basically play Journeys faithfully but slightly faster as a theme to one of the Mega Man levels, never thought anybody would notice that shit. It's sort of like in Evangelion in the 90s, one of the music tracks in that, well, it was repeated a lot, is a direct steal of one of the James Bond theme tracks from, I believe it's From Russia with Love.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things where you didn't know that was going to become an international phenomenon and be one of the biggest, most influential things. And so eventually they had to license that to even put it out again. It's just a whole weird area that no one thought was ever going to be an issue.
Yeah, I brought this up on Good Morning Gaming this week, in fact, talking about the Beastie Boys' Paul's Boutique album. And it's just literally, the whole album is just one sample after another. There's literally hundreds and hundreds of samples in there that were uncleared. You could never make that album now. Everything, every note, every melody, everything now is protected. And back then, it was the Wild West, and they just went crazy and just sampled every hook, every little bass line, everything that they had loved throughout their entire lives and got away without paying for any of it. Now, I don't know how that has worked out in present day. I don't know if they're paying royalties now to the artists that they sampled for that, but the album came out, and for years and years, it was just this sampling masterpiece that they never had to really pay the piper for. So times change, laws change, and it affects art. There's no doubt about it. But But I am a little surprised that Kojima has not made something for Nintendo in a really, really long time.
I don't think he was interested in dealing with the underpowered hardware.
It's possible, yeah. He does seem fixated on...
He loves the cutting-edge graphics stuff.
Yeah, it does seem like it's important to him.
So I mean, he's been like that since the PS1. Like, Metal Gear Solid 1 was just beyond anything that was
on the
happening
PlayStation
on
at the time.
Yeah,
absolutely. Do you think it would be smart for PlayStation to buy Kojima Productions?
Maybe eventually. But
would you recommend that they do it?
Not right now.
Me either. I wouldn't either. I'd let him go out and build a studio and maybe finally make another hit.
Yeah.
Because he hasn't had a hit for a while, let's be honest.
Like, Death Stranding is a technical achievement, but it ain't a hit.
It's not a hit. I mean, the last hit was probably, what, MGS2?
Really big, like, burn the charts? Yeah, probably.
Yeah, that was a long time ago,
I don't remember how 4 sold, because it was a PlayStation 3 exclusive, so probably...
I think it did okay. That actually might have been the last hit, so to speak, that he had. Because 5 sold, 8 million copies, I think I remember?
5 was a hit by the context of, like, older times, but it wasn't by the context of when it came out.
And it's hard to remember the sales for this stuff, too, because these games are so old that the number that I have in my mind is the number around when it came out. And now that the game has been out for 20-some years, it could have accumulated a lot more sales.
At a certain point, Metal Gear Solid 5 has been $5 so often. It's probably double that now. Yeah,
you end up getting into like the Grand Theft Auto 5 territory, where it's just been around for so long, it just adds up.
And it's been so cheap
and discounted so many times and given away at different
I
services.
admit, I mean, it's annoying, and I hated it when it would happen in the game, but I never get tired of seeing him just sort of give up and float away. It's like, no, I don't think anyone would really do that. I mean, especially after like 2 minutes of waiting. It's like, no, I'm just too tired.
Well, you would probably drown, to be honest with you. The packages would just drag you to the bottom and you'd die. But Congram makes a good point. He says he does make some good trailers that take over mind share in the industry. That's the thing, though. His trailers are so good, but it never translates to sales.
No, well, because it also never translates to good game.
They're intriguing, though.
I mean, well, yeah, but also remember, like, through all those years of Death Stranding trailers, and you were like, oh, I can't. I'm like, it's just going to be bullshit again. It's like, I know he has no interesting answers for any of the mysteries he throws up in his pre-release or trailer stuff. Like, I knew it was going to be dumb crap. Yeah. And it was. You were right. Yep, absolutely. And, like, here we are, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, what is the game going to be?" It's like, it's going to be. I mean, I never predicted it was going to be delivering packages for 40 hours. But I don't think anyone could have guessed that when they first started showing the gameplay stuff, and people were like, "Well, it's going to be more than that, right?" And it's like, have you played a Kojima game before? Yeah, I mean, he shows you what it is. Like, that's one thing I'll give him. Every time he's demoed something early, it's always been a very accurate vertical slice of what you're going to do, going all the way back to Metal Gear Solid 2. Yeah. Sleeping Psychologist says Death Stranding is an 85 on Metacritic, which is crazy. That is crazy. It is. But like, again, that shows you the power of... Yeah. Huge bump. Yep. I don't know, which is bigger, the Nintendo bump or the Kojima bump? Depends on the franchise, but the Zelda bump is unmatched. Yeah. Except maybe by the From Software bump. Yeah. That's pretty healthy, From and Zelda are the king of the review bump. No question. For sure. Because I can see someone. I mean, look, the fact that it's an aggregate is ridiculous. But I can see someone thinking Death Stranding is an 8.5 if it's really up their alley. A couple people, if the community building thing really makes you interested, because some of that's really cool, and like if you want something that's sort of like, like I said, but they should be the outliers. If you play Death Stranding correctly, it's boring. Because nothing happens. But I could also see someone, if you just want something where you can kind of like play something like that and listen to a podcast and sort of chill out, like that's a pretty good option for that. But that's not what I'm after there. But I could see someone thinking, I'll give this an 8.5 because it's just exactly my esoteric thing I wanted. The 8.5 should be the outlier. It's an aggregate. The outlier. Like, they should be the top. Sure. And then when you get to the average, it should be like a 7.7. Well, because that being the aggregate means there's people that give it like a 9 point something. It's just like, oh, wow. Exactly. They're not the outliers. They're like, the middle. Are you Norman Reedus? Because I don't know why else you would. It is bizarre. Yeah. But for whatever reason, people get excited by Kojima's games and then they don't really buy them. So it's really bizarre. And then they kind of stop. Like, that's one thing that's notable, I think, about Death Stranding is how unnotable it is. Yeah. It's like, people still talk about Metal Gear stuff. Yeah. Fairly regularly. Even 5. You don't see people mention Death Stranding. Nope. Really. Death Stranding did not make much of an impact on the general psyche of the gaming public. Yeah. Yep. Well, the Metal Gear Solid 5 was also weird, where it had like that tanker that you'd go back to. Yeah, well, and like the endless load times that turned out to be intentional because you can get a skill letter that makes them shorter. I'm like, bite me, bite me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Metal Gear Solid 5 has its own problem, also including that it's not finished.
Yeah.
And so like the story isn't really there. It's like so weird. Like you went through all the trouble and expense to get Kiefer Sutherland to voice him, and then like it got wrapped. Konami basically made him wrap it up so fast and abruptly. Not that they didn't give him years to figure it out, but like they just it's like, oh, it'll just be a bunch of audio tapes, and otherwise he won't really talk. And like,
what happened to Kiefer Sutherland? Did he die?
He's around doing stuff.
He doesn't do anything.
He just said this week he'd like to bring Jack Bauer back.
Really?
I'm sure you would.
I bet he would. His career just disappeared.
Well, he had some trouble and some...
I haven't seen him in anything in forever.
I don't know. Yeah, I can't remember the last time I saw him in something.
Yeah.
I like him. I think he's good.
Yeah.
I especially love that video of him tackling the Christmas tree in that Lake Tahoe hotel or wherever that was.
Oh yeah.
Where he just asks permission, like pays the guy and,
right.
says like, "Can I just jump into the tree?" And he's like, "All right." And he's like, "Yeah." And he just jumps into the. I mean, look, that's a man living his best life.
Yeah.
And going, and he asked permission. He offered to compensate.
Yep.
He just wanted to do it, and he did it. I respect that.
I do too.
I do remember one time, it was right when they expanded G4, like, it was like when we were going daily live, and they expanded the web team huge. So Andrew Pfister and Patrick Klepek and all those guys, and Billy Berghammer and all those guys joined the team, and we all went out to, I think it was the Rustic, to like have a bonding, sort of get to know each other editorial team thing. Mm-hmm. And that was right around the time I think he was like supposed to be right out of rehab and doing better or whatever. And we're all sitting around, and these guys come in and take the table next to us, and the two guys who are there like go to the bar, and one guy stays at the table, and we look over, and the guy who stayed at the table is Kiefer Sutherland. And we're like, what the hell?
Some of those guys had probably just moved to LA and were like, whoa.
And we're all like, they're all recognizing who he is, and he looks over, he can tell that we know
who he is. Yeah.
And we're like, we're not going to tell him. We're not going to. And he's just like,
that stuff happens in LA all the time, by the way. All the time. My wife eats next to celebrities probably once a month. Like big ones, too, like Kanye or whatever.
I mean, they got to eat, too. So.
They do, yeah. Well, I ran into Glenn Danzig at the grocery store, so you just never know what's going to happen here. It's bizarre. Do you think Kojima is at a do-or-die time?
No.
Do you think he needs a hit?
I think he could use one, but I think he's... I think Death Stranding didn't set the world on fire, but I'm sure it did fine for him. Mm-hmm. I don't think he's in danger.
I mean, he did whip a studio together pretty quickly and put out a game that, whether you like it or not, is one thing, but it is a high quality product.
Yeah,
that was
I would
polished
say it's a pretty impressive achievement for a first time team.
Yeah.
Even if he brought a bunch of people with him.
Yep.
That's a whole bunch of different logistic challenges than working under a Konami banner.
Yep.
And they got it done, and it got it done in a pretty good amount of time.
Yeah,
like
it's like the quickest game he ever made.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And it doesn't, it's not like buggy. It's not, it wasn't especially bad, in that regard. It was very polished. So, yeah, like I would not, at the very least, I would think somebody would be interested in buying them as a functional unit, even if not as a source of IP.
Right. That's a good point.
But I'm sure his focus right now is he's getting one last shot at that. He always wanted to be a director. Kojima's always been a frustrated film director who ended up in video games.
That's true.
And here's his last shot. But yesterday I was actually looking at the list of video game movies in production, quote unquote, in development or whatever.
And that list was like 30 miles long.
No, it's like. It's like 15, 20 movies.
I bet you there's more than that.
No, not that are like actually announced.
Because some of them disappear. Like Minecraft was started in 2016 and like went through all this pre-production and was supposed to have like Steve Carell is like the lead. Now it just resurfaced yesterday and is like Jason Momoa is now the lead and they've got the director from like.
I mean, look, there's just a lot of.
Moving parts.
Yeah. I mean, some of this stuff's been in development hell forever. But there's a bunch of stuff. There's I forgot that the Werewolves Within movie came out last year.
Oh, wait, it came out.
That came out last June. Yeah, I'm like, that happened? Okay. I mean, because I remember talking about that, but then I think it just went up on streaming or something. No, I don't know. Yeah. But some friends and I were talking about like it's like is the only good video game movies, and I'm like,
Nolan Elric. Who's a better writer, Kojima or David Cage?
Oh, Kojima. Sonic 1, the first Sonic movie is probably better than it has any right to be. The original Mortal Kombat, I wouldn't call it good, but it does justice to the source material of the game, I would say. And there's another one that I was like, this one was pretty good. I can't remember what it was now, which shows you how much that's stuck in my head.
Exactly.
The other was like, did you remember there was a Max Payne movie that starred Mark Wahlberg? Because I completely forgot that happened.
Yeah.
I completely forgot that was a thing that happened.
Yep. It's crazy. Well, now there's a Streets of Rage movie coming.
And that was announced yesterday.
The people who work on John Wick are like moving over to that. It's insane. Yeah, everyone, now that Sonic has exploded, everyone's like, woohoo.
Detective Pikachu.
Pikachu. That's the other good one.
Yeah, and Silent Hill was not
watchable.
It was okay. It was, watchable. Certainly for its time, it was at least.
It was one of the best ones.
Yeah, it was admirably true to the source material.
It was one of the best games.
Like I could watch that and recognize what I was watching, which at the time was unusual for a video game movie.
Yeah,
and we'll see how the Illuminations Mario movie is this December. Like the Minions guys.
Right.
That'll
probably be pretty good.
Like I know everybody's all.
It shouldn't be terrible anyway.
I know we're all freaking out about. Chris Pratt being Mario, but it's like, no, the kids aren't going to care.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't. The target ones are not going to. The target demographic for that is not going to care. They
don't even know
Charles
who it is.
Martinet is not. Yeah.
They may say it doesn't sound like Mario.
We got the Borderlands movie in development. We have Borderlands, Crossfire. You're trying to make a Crossfire movie. Five Nights at Freddy's, which is pretty far along. Gears of War, Ghost of Tsushima, which is the next project for the Sony team after Uncharted. Just Cause. Just Dance. Ubisoft makes a lot of decisions. Have you noticed that? Minecraft, Metal Gear Solid, which Kojima's working on, or somebody's working on. Sony's working on it with Konami. I imagine they're going to probably call him. A sequel to the Mortal Kombat movie.
Yeah. That was pretty good, actually.
Yeah, that was for what it was.
Yeah.
Portal, supposedly. Rabbids. They're doing a live-action Rabbids movie. Sonic 3. Space Invaders. Sequel to that Tomb Raider reboot called Tomb Raider Obsidian. Saints Row movie. And a Yakuza movie. And that's that. In terms of Western development, that's what we got. And I will also add one of the good video game movies is the Phoenix Wright movie, which never came here, but it is actually a very accurate Phoenix Wright movie.
Is it animated?
No.
It's
live action, but it's mimicking the look of the games.
Interesting.
Almost perfect. Like the guy has the hair and the suit, and they do the speed lines and the pointing and the objection, it's all there.
Huh?
Like it's really.
I didn't even know it
accurate.
existed.
Well, it never came. It's only in Japan.
Oh.
But you can get like fan sub versions. But like it's real good. Like as long as you know what Phoenix Wright is, and you're like expecting a movie version of that, it's really good.
Surprised it doesn't come to Netflix.
And it would be if they bring all that Godzilla crap,
right?
Which is just
or some streaming service, because all of them are just begging for content.
Yeah,
basically.
Bring it over.
Yeah, might as well.
I think more and more you'll start to see stuff like that. As we should. Like it's fun to see stuff sort of like open up that way a little bit. It's like Everything Everywhere All at Once. Like really kind of the embrace of like, okay, like mainstream audiences know what multiverses are and timelines are, so we can start accepting those stories now.
We can start making smarter movies. Yeah.
Well,
have you seen that?
No.
Everything All at Once?
I want to.
Me too.
But from what I hear, it is smart. But more or less, what you're going to get in the mainstream is actually more like Sony Pictures is going to make some stupid. Madam Web is supposed to be like basically their version of Doctor Strange multiverse stuff for the Spider Villain Sonyverse thing, which part of me believes that Madam Web will never be made because I think Morbius did not do well, and Craven is shooting right now. Nobody in the world wants a Craven movie, a Craven solo film. Like it doesn't even make any sense. And I guess the villain in that is somebody called the Foreigner, and they did like some press release where they're like, one of Spider-Man's top foes, the Foreigner. I'm like, I have been reading Spider-Man comics since 1979, and I have no idea who that character is.
He's definitely not a top foe. If he was never in the cartoon, he was never a top foe.
Yeah.
That's where I would draw the line.
There's something. There is a thing where like, in terms of like kind of I remember growing up as a kid and reading these comics and having to get familiar with these vintage characters that have been around forever since before I was born, and now we're hitting a point like when I played like Arkham Knight, and I was like, who the hell is Professor Pig? Is this something? And I looked at him, it's like, oh, he's some like old villain that I don't know anything about. Like, oh no, he was introduced like 2 years ago, and I don't know him because I'm too old to have read the comic. And so it's flipping over that way now. So maybe the Foreigner is a more recent introduction, but like I keep up with most of that. I don't know who the hell that is, and I don't know why anyone would want to watch a movie that's just about Kraven the Hunter. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me.
I'm starting to glaze over with the superhero stuff in general. Like, the Thor trailer came out and I watched it and I was like, okay, like there's just too much.
I don't agree with that.
And I know you say that all the time, like there's only like, it just feels like all the ones that are promoted, like,
oh sure,
all I ever see is just Marvel or DC stuff. Like,
yeah, but if Marvel and DC stuff went away, you'd see something else all the whatever the new trend became. Like,
but I mean, this has been going on for a while now.
Yeah, well, that's because it's really good.
Yeah.
And again,
I'm not saying that I don't like.
I just pay attention to them. I just pay attention to the MCU stuff because that's the good stuff. And sometimes the Batman was good, but that's I knew that wasn't part of the normal universe. That was just a Matt Reeves film, and I like Matt Reeves stuff on Planet of the Apes, so I was like, okay, maybe that'll be good. On the flip side, you've got stuff like Morbius, which like I knew was going to be garbage from the beginning. And yeah, like the best thing about Morbius coming out is I never need to see the Morbius trailer again. But I mean, I felt that way about Dune too, and I loved Dune.
Yeah, it was really good.
But I'm really glad I never need to see that trailer again when I go to the movies.
I was pleasantly surprised by that film. I recommend it highly. And it's on HBO Max right now too, so go watch it.
Great movie.
Yeah, I had actually skimmed past it for like weeks, and one night I was like, I'm going to watch it. I mean, look, I'm going to try to watch it, and I immediately got sucked in.
I don't think Denis Villeneuve has ever made anything less than a good movie.
Yeah.
He makes good and great movies, and he's never made anything less than that.
Really enjoy it.
Every single thing he's ever done is really good and worth watching.
Yep. All right, let's move on. I can't believe we just burned that much time talking about Kojima not being purchased by PlayStation.
Like, I mean, and I will actually agree on the Thor trailer that a lot of it was not all that interesting, but that's because it's a teaser and they're not showing anything about what the movie's really about.
Yeah.
And I'm here for Jack Lee Portman.
Yeah.
Like she looks great as Thor.
I've had a crush on her for a long time. Mm-hmm. She's one of those celebrities. Like, there's so many celebrities that are beautiful, but for whatever reason, man, she's right in my wheelhouse.
Oh yeah, I always liked her. From like Star Wars on.
Even before that, I liked her.
And I mean, she's very good. I mean, she's even in The Professional, she's excellent. Yeah. She's a great actor. And Black Swan is one of just a tour de force a generational tour de force performance.
Yep.
I mean, just being able to work with Aronofsky that smoothly is impressive all on its own.
Any film that she's in, when she's in frame, I don't look at anything else. I hate to admit it, but
she's got star power.
Yeah.
And I do remember Guy. You remember Guy Branum?
Yeah.
He was in a movie with her.
Really?
Years and years ago. And at one point he was on set and he texted me and he's like, "Guess who I'm in a room with?" and he's like, "Queen Amidala." And
that's great.
He said he said that she reminded him of Morgan a little bit.
Really?
In that she was like very kind and smart and very plugged into everything, but kind of uncomfortable with the celebrity that came along with her career.
I get that vibe.
Like, totally,
from her.
I get.
Yeah. Yep.
But I'm glad.
Just another reason to like her even more.
I'm glad she's back.
Yeah.
And I love that, like, the reason she came back, she's like, "Oh, I get to be Thor this time? Yeah, I'm in. Like, I'm never doing these movies again. What if you get to pick up the hammer?" It's like, all right, yeah.
There aren't any...
Because I completely identify with that. Like, yeah.
There aren't many actors left who haven't been in the MCU at this point. They're running out of people.
Yeah, I mean, I got Christian Bale for this
one. I know.
And I will also, the other thing about the Thor, I will say, the story they're adapting is one of the best Thor stories ever told.
Dude,
like
the weirdest part,
Gore the God Butcher is a fantastic Thor story.
Weirdest part,
and a couple of the shots in that trailer are right out of the comics, which means they should be paying the artists of those comics more.
You're right.
By the way,
the weirdest thing of all of the people who are in the MCU is that there is this guy named Matthew Berry. He goes by the handle of the talented Mr. Roto. He is a fantasy football analyst, and he is in the movies. He is in the MCU.
What is he?
I don't know how. He just has these bit parts where he shows up with like a suitcase and like he'll be in the films for like 30 seconds, but he's in them. It's so weird.
Well, you remember that Olivia Munn is canon to the MCU.
Right, yeah.
She was in Iron Man 2
But this is a fantasy football analyst for ESPN.
Was he just like an extra in things?
He had like a talking role in like one of the last ones. It's very short. But he has a speaking role. He walks in with like a metal briefcase and hands it to somebody, and delivers like 1 or 2 lines, and he's gone, and that's like it. But he's in it. It's bizarre.
Maybe Feige's a fantasy football fan.
Maybe. It's possible. I don't know how he got in there.
You never know why people are cameo in these things.
He runs celebrity fantasy football leagues.
I'm sure.
So I'm guessing that's how he got in. It's still bizarre. All right, we got to move on. We have to move on. Next up, we're going to talk about Lorne Lanning. How do you feel about Lorne Lanning, Matt? We've been in the industry a long time. We've rubbed elbows with him a lot of times.
He has some stances on things I do not agree with.
See, I don't know about anything that he does personally, but I have been around him many, many times, and he, to me, was one of the least friendly kind of icons in the industry. Like when
I think the chat's summing up my reaction at this point.
What?
Who?
Oh.
He's just not relevant.
Lorne Lanning?
Yeah. I mean, obviously I know who he is, but he's not relevant.
I mean, he used to be.
Yeah. But that was like
okay, for the people of you who are saying who, he is the head of the Oddworld franchise, which I know now doesn't have a lot of relevancy, but back in the PS1, PS2 era, they were kind of a big deal, those games.
Sort of.
It never transitioned to 3D very well.
I never liked the Oddworld games, so it's always been kind of an irrelevant thing to me. The only one I think I really liked was Stranger's Wrath.
Yeah.
And even that was
the shooter.
Yeah, it was a shooter, but even that was sort of like, eh.
Yeah. Well, he used to be someone in the industry, and I've been around him way back when he was somebody. I've been around him when his brand has waned. I hate calling someone a brand, but anyway. He has never been nice. He has always been aloof and like always seemed like he was.
I don't think I've ever met him.
Really? I've interviewed him at least 3 or 4 times, but it was always like he was the guy that you'd show up to the interview and he'd like be late, and then when he'd show up with his handler, he wouldn't apologize, and then because he's late, he's rushing the interview, and then he gets angry if you're like asking questions that are actually good questions. Like, I've just not had good vibes from the guy. I actually reached out to him to have him on episode of 3 Night Weekend. He never even replied. So I have not had good experiences with the guy. I don't know about his personal beliefs or anything like that. But the latest Oddworld game, Oddworld Soulstorm, which we talked at length about on GameFace when it came out, and we were pretty much like lukewarm on it.
Yeah, best. I mean, and look, man, I know someone who is this guy is a huge fan of the Oddworld games. Like, Soulstorm, couldn't even finish it.
Yeah.
Like, he was like, meh. Like,
I mean, that's kind of the game in a nutshell.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, doesn't matter whether you like Oddworld or not. Like, the reception on this game was just negative in general, or at least lukewarm. Lukewarm is kind of the kindest reaction I've seen.
Yep. Well, what happened was I don't know if you even remember this, but it was a big game 1 month for PlayStation Plus. It was a free giveaway, and it was for PlayStation 5. And when he signed the deal, the PlayStation 5 was supply constrained and there weren't a lot of them out there. And so he assumed that maybe they'd have 50,000 downloads of the game or something like that. Well, they ended up delaying the game by 3 months, and in that 3 months' time, a lot more people managed to get PlayStation 5s, and so he had already signed the deal. So 3 months later, they put it up for free on PlayStation Plus, and it ended up getting like 5 million downloads. And he's angry about it. He believes that cost the studio a lot of money, and he says it was devastating to Oddworld Soulstorm. But he's working under the assumption that every person who downloaded the game would have paid money for the game. Yeah, it seems like developers do this a lot.
Yeah, I mean, you could still. What was the original? They thought they were going to have like 50,000.
50,000. No, he said no more than 100K. He said he expected...
That seems really naive.
He said he expected 50K, but he thought no more than 100K.
That seems very naive, even for the amount of PlayStation... I mean, how many PlayStation 5 sold at launch? It had to be
there's like a million, I would guess.
Like, why wouldn't people just download that people download PlayStation Plus free games by default? Like, I don't even look at them most of the time. I just add them to the library and never think about it again. Like, even if you... I mean, I guess you can still make the argument that, like, say, I don't know... like 10% of the people who downloaded it might have paid for it.
Oh, correction, by the way. It was downloaded almost 4 million times, not 5 million. So I want to get that right.
But, like, it's still kind of like... I mean, I still think a lot of that is just people just automatically download the free thing and don't think about it again. I'd be much more interested in how many people played it.
I'd be really interested to see what percentage of people who download the free games for PlayStation Plus ever play them.
Right.
because I don't think it's that.
I mean,
high.
I don't even download them anymore because storage space is still so rare.
Yeah.
So I think.
I mean, I don't download them either. I just claim them.
Yeah, I put them in the library and I never think about them again.
Yeah.
Stupid.
Why do we do this?
Because it's free.
It is, but it's so
free
weird.
and we're paying for it, so we might as well get the thing. You know?
Like if you had told like 12-year-old me way back in the 80s and 90s or whatever, that like there would be a service that I could pay for where I could play online, but I'd also get like all these free games, and I would never play any of the free games, I'd tell you that you're insane. That there's no way. But here I am. I think we're just presented with so much choice.
Yeah.
At this
There's
point,
a paralysis of choice thing in play.
Yeah,
and also just like who has that kind of time.
Yeah, who does? Back then I would have thought I would, but
yeah,
I was just a child. So he believes that the poor sales for Oddworld Soulstorm are due to this, because the game tanked ultimately. Mm-hmm. Although he didn't share, how many copies it sold on Xbox, because if he had done that, then it would have blown his whole argument to shreds, because they'd have been like, oh, well, it didn't sell on Xbox either, and he didn't give it away there.
Well, clearly everybody has both, and there's no way around that, really. Also, like, I think it's sold poorly because it's a bad game.
I don't think it's a bad game. I just think it's an old game that's lost to time. And
I don't think it upgrades anything too much beyond the visuals, and I have never found these games interesting or compelling in any way.
They're puzzle platformers.
Yeah, but I like a lot. I like Out of This World, and I like Flashback and Prince of Persia, but these just leave me ice cold at all times. I don't think they're funny. I think, I don't know.
I hate the art style. I hate the characters.
The art style is off-putting in a weird way. Like, I don't know how to describe it. Like, really, so it does. I'm not offended.
The characters
by
aren't
it.
appealing.
I'm not upset
They're
by
like
it.
these slimy, like salamander creatures. Like, they're just
like
not...
None of this is charming. It's just sort of like, it's like a weird mix of like just sort of off-putting and try-hard.
Yeah,
and I don't like. I've never liked it.
This game in particular is one of the rare games these days that was like 2.5D.
Yeah,
there aren't many games like that anymore. Kirby and the Forgotten Lands, kind of 2.5D.
A little bit, yeah. I mean,
but you don't get the weird, like, this game would beat you over the head with it, where you'd be running sideways, and the camera would, like, pan around. And
yeah, this one really leans into it.
Yeah, a lot more than most games do anymore. It's kind of a forgotten art style at this point, the 2.5D
I mean,
game.
there's maybe a reason for that.
Yeah. What do you think the answer is for games like this? Do you think it's smart to release them on PlayStation Plus?
I mean, apparently he's not happy with it financially, so...
Yeah.
I mean, I think...
It seemed like we'd always heard good news, like, as far as developers working with PlayStation Plus.
Well, it sounds like maybe they just struck a bad deal with them. Mm-hmm. Like, if you're getting paid under the assumption that there will be 100K downloads, that's probably a different deal than if you were going to get 4 million.
Yeah.
And you should probably be striking a deal where you get paid a certain amount per download.
Right.
If they're even willing to agree to that.
Yeah, I don't know if that's even
and it
on
depends,
the table.
I don't know what Sony's deals are like. I know the people that I've talked to who are like indie game developers who got on Game Pass said that most of them said they made more money on the Game Pass deal than they did from actual copies sold from all the other platforms combined.
Yeah.
So it was a good deal for them. But then if you're expecting sort of low to mid AA sales like Lauren seems to have been expecting, then that's I guess going to be a disappointment. Like. Or maybe not. I don't know. Like I think the 4 million figure is misleading in terms of interest for the game. It was just more of a and there might have been an element of like you see the icon or whatever for that. You're like, what the hell is that? Like there might have been a curiosity element to it, but I don't think that curiosity element would translate into what was it 40?
40 what?
$40? Like how much was
I don't remember how much it was.
Like I have a hard time believing that would translate.
I think that sounds right, though. I mean, I'm guessing that's probably around what they were asking.
I have a hard time believing that would translate into full price sales.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't think that's a calculation you can really make, is the problem.
It's hard, yeah. But let's not forget either that his studio delayed the game. They didn't get the game done in time. If the team had got the game done in time, the team that he leads, they wouldn't have had this problem at all. Like, he doesn't bring that up. Like, if we had actually got the game done when we were supposed to, that deal might have worked out okay. But the failings of his studio that he leads resulted in all these problems. So, do you think this puts a black eye on PlayStation Plus at all? Do you think other developers and studios will look at this? Me either. Yeah. I think you're just going to look at it like, Lauren, you screwed up, dude.
Yeah, I think you're targeting... So, I mean, clearly they're putting a lot of effort into production value and most likely budget on this, but it feels like... it feels like they just over budgeted a game that is not going to break. Games like this don't really break out of the indie space too often, and they need to be budgeted as such.
Yep.
You can certainly make a successful 2.5D side-scrolling action game. Look at Bloodstained or something like that. They happen all the time in that space, and this is with all these high-end CGs and CG scenes and stuff. Like, I feel like they're just sort of
they aimed too high.
They aimed real high.
They're like Icarus. They flew too close to the sun.
And to be clear, I think some of these games could do well. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. I just don't think this is the one that's going to do it.
Yeah,
because it's just too weird.
And you're right. The amount of money that they spent, because the CG in this is really good. Mm-hmm. Which means that they spent a lot of money on the CG.
Like, technically and presentationally, it's very good.
Yeah,
it's up there.
But this license, this IP is just...
Yeah. I mean, part of me was just like, maybe I'd be more willing to watch like a CG movie of this than play this game, because
but I don't like the characters.
Yeah, no. But I think there might be an audience there somewhere.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't. I don't want to play. The gameplay of these games does not interest me.
Yeah.
Kind of the weird mix of like puzzle solving and like kind of lemming stuff,
environmental stuff.
It's just not interesting.
This game also got repetitive very quickly.
Oh yeah,
it was like a
what's the other thing? Is like, I know it's a remake of the second game, but it's like you haven't had any new ideas for this in 20 years. Like,
right.
Like, it's still the same thing.
Yep, a lot of time to pass for.
And if you're into it, I guess that's a good thing. But to me, I was never particularly pulled in by these games, and I was you'd have to reinvent them more. Like Stranger's Wrath did. Stranger's Wrath was a huge reinvention of what an Oddworld game should be, and I thought that worked.
And maybe they should have kept going down that path.
Maybe. But it just sort of disappeared after that. Because I can't remember how Stranger's Wrath sold.
I don't remember either.
It was mostly an original Xbox game.
Plus, back then, expectations for sales were way different. Like, back then, if a game sold 1 million copies, it was a huge hit. Mm-hmm. And it definitely was going to get a sequel. That's not how it works anymore. Like, it's... Depending on expectations, I saw someone in chat talking about Square Enix's expectations and how unrealistic they are. That's a great example of it. A game doesn't sell 15 million copies. Square Enix is like, oh, it's a massive failure and a disappointment.
I also have a hard time believing that 4 months made the difference between 100,000 and 4 million. It wasn't that easy to find a PlayStation 5.
I mean, another 2 million consoles maybe were sold by then?
Worldwide. 4 months?
Worldwide, yeah.
No.
Yep. And he said for us, it was devastating. So I don't know if that means the studio's going to close. Will you miss them if they do?
No, I mean, I don't think anyone should lose their job over a bad decision like that, but like... That's
how being a leader works, though.
Yeah.
You're a poor leader. It costs everybody else, so...
Yeah, actions have consequences, and...
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know anything about negotiating with Sony for a PlayStation Plus deal or how that works, but...
At the very least...
It sounds like it wasn't a good deal for what they were expecting versus what they got.
At the very least, I would hope it would convince the studio and Lorne to move on from Oddworld, even though the studio is called Oddworld Inhabitants.
But like, clearly they've got talent. They've got skill here. They can.
So if you work on something else with these people, you could have something special.
Just take those people and make something else. Make something more appealing.
Agreed. Yep. So there you go. That's a little glimpse behind the curtain at what happens with PlayStation Plus. But again, it's his fault. His studio delayed the game. The deal probably would have worked out just fine for him if they had got it done when they were supposed to get it done. They didn't, and they paid the price for it. Mm-hmm. And that's how it plays out. Okay, let's move on. We're going to talk next. I can turn my paper over here. Going to talk next about one of the games that Matt has been playing this week that I have not been playing. You dove back in again into No Man's Sky. There's a brand new update for it called Outlaws. Mm-hmm. And... how much time have you spent with it at this point?
Oh, probably like 10-ish hours.
10 hours?
So, yeah. Actually, probably more than that. But, like, on and off. Like, it's not a constant interaction thing, the update. It's just more like it enhances the starship combat, mostly. So now there's, like, pirate raids and, like, a lot... You can build a squadron. There's, like, quests and stuff that are involved going and, like, liberating systems from outlaws. There are outlaw-controlled systems. So you go... Then they're marked with a skull, so you can land... You go into the outlaw system, land on the outlaw space station, and there's a whole different layout and different group of characters who are sort of, like, selling things, but they're all contraband and they're all smuggling stuff. So you can do smuggling and use contraband stuff and kind of do black market trades back and forth, but that can mark your reputation. So you have to also find these like ledger hack things that let you go. So you go into like a legitimate space station, and if you've been dealing with outlaws, they're gonna not like you and not want to let you be there. So
wait, are these brand new space stations that are completely different from the old ones?
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
they're still you still go in and land the same way, but they're like red, and they everybody's got like makeshift like booths set up instead of like the layout with the stairs and everything. It's much more ramshackle, and there's like barrels on fire like on the space. It's like it's more desperate poverty trying to scrape by.
It's the black market, basically.
Making drugs and everything. It's a very different thing. But basically, if you deal with them too much, you're gonna get blackballed by the legitimate side of things.
Really?
And you have to like use these items to go hack the central computer and like erase your black market dealings.
Oh, interesting.
So there's a balance on that now.
Now, the items that you get from the black market, are there risks associated with the items? Like, is there a chance that like they don't work properly or anything like that?
No, but if you're carrying them, you can get hit with like law enforcement. Like you can get in a fight with patrolling craft, and that will mark you as an outlaw.
Okay.
And that's what you need to repair your reputation for. There's a couple other things they added, like the solar sail ships, which I think they showed briefly. There's one with a solar sail that kind of unfurls.
What is the point of that?
It just looks cool.
Okay, so it's just cosmetic. It's not.
They added a bunch of other cosmetic, like that type of wing configuration. There is new. So there's a bunch of new ships and new designs for the ships you can find. I've already seen a bunch of stuff I've never seen before. That's really cool. And so you can have a collection of more ships now. I think you could have like 4 before, now you can have 9. They added capes, so you have cloaks and hoods now, which is fun. But I play in first person, so it doesn't really matter.
Oh, you never see it.
There's been some issues where like. So the previous update before this was settlements. So you could like become the overseer of a settlement, and like you build stuff and contribute resources, and you kind of build this sort of functioning city after a while, which is really cool. But pirates could attack it now, and so like pirates were attacking my city every 3 minutes or so.
Oh, geez.
And so if I was waiting for something, because there's like stuff where there's an outlaw station. This is what an outlaw station looks like.
And there's even the barrels you were talking about.
And you can. So you can put in resources and stuff so they build something. It takes like an hour or 2 hours to build some of these buildings, so you're kind of waiting around doing stuff. And if you do that, there's just pirates attacking constantly. And so like one of the first things I did was have them build a spaceport so I could like land without using fuel, because I had to keep taking off. And eventually I would just teleport back to another space station and wait, because it was just, otherwise I was just kind of. Now this morning they put a patch out that fixed that. So it was a bug. So they put a patch out.
Bug.
Yeah, they're not supposed to attack that often. They also would do a thing where they'd land. Like the pirates just land on my landing platforms, and no one could shoot them anymore. So I had to fly away from the settlement and come back. And if I came back, they'd reset, so I could shoot them again. It was
a little buggy.
A little bit, but they fixed all that this morning with like a 9 gig patch.
It always blows my mind. It's like you just released it, and then you fix it in like a day.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's one of those things where it's like that you just don't see it until millions of people play it, and then they're like, oh well, we know what the problem is there. We've just never seen it before. We never saw it widely enough. Because this thing gathers telemetry like you wouldn't believe. So they do fix stuff pretty quick, but it's cool. And you can build a squadron. So like it's if I've seen a ship that I think is cool. But I don't really want to have it in my collection. I've just had them join my squadron, and so you can call your squadron in, and like they'll patrol things around you, or they'll help you with a tough space battle.
How's the AI on that stuff?
They're fine.
Yeah.
They actually will shoot things down. They've added a bunch of cosmetic stuff to things, like when you shoot a ship now, you see the shield around it, like a big bubble of a shield. And it'll pop when you destroy the shield, and then it'll show like real fire damage on the ship as you're shooting it down. And when they explode, there's a big like smoke and particle effects. Like it's a real big satisfying boom when these things explode. So it's much more dramatic than before, which is cool. The fleets, I did get in a fleet fight at one point, and like fleet battles used to be like there's usually like a big ship and like a few freighters, and there would be like pirates. This was I took a screenshot of it. This must have been 30 ships in the fleet. And the lead thing was bigger than almost anything I've ever seen. It had a Star Destroyer back that was like, it took me almost like half a minute to fly past.
Wow.
And like tons, it had like 7 or 8 pirates, which usually it's like 4.
Yeah.
So they've improved the scale of it, and I'm sure if you progress more, like you'll see bigger and bigger battles, which is really cool.
Any changes to the stuff on the ground in Outlaws?
Not really that I've seen. I mean, everything. It's also because I don't come back to it every single time they update. It's hard to know like what's exactly
what was just added here.
But it's as you can see, it looks way better than it used to. It's got the areas are impressive. The ground looks like ground. Planet, you can actually spend some time on a planet looking around and feel like you're looking at a real place
instead of it just being this copy and paste.
Yeah, that's long gone. It's very, very well done in that regard.
Do you think this game needs to continue expanding, or do you think that they've kind of reached the law of diminishing returns at this point?
No, I mean, every expansion adds something worthwhile so far. If they want to keep doing it, I'll tell you one thing I still want. I want to be able to repaint my damn spaceships.
You still can't do that?
Still can't repaint the spaceships a different color.
Still?
You can repaint your giant capital ship. You cannot repaint the starfighters so far.
Why?
I think they want you to just go find new stuff, but I think I should. If I find that, I want like full customization of the starships.
Yeah.
Like even if I have to jump through hoops or spend a lot of resources or spend special resources to unlock the pieces or the paints or whatever. Like, I'll do that's fine. That's fine. But like, I really want to be able to customize the ships in some way. Even if
I can totally understand.
Even if you don't let me swap out pieces and parts and build my own, that's fine. But I want to be able to paint them. Like I saw this beautiful ship in the first system I was in, actually after the update. Just exactly what I would want from like the moving ships with the giant turbines and the whole, like, everything was great. But it was right there. It was that color yellow. It was that guy's yellow. And I'm like, I don't want to look at that. I don't like that color. And so I recruited it into my squadron, but I didn't make it buy the ship.
Right.
And it was even an S class. It was perfect. It was like one of the best ships I've ever seen, but it was just the ugliest damn yellow color, and I don't want that.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Yeah. Have you found that you've run into other players more frequently in the game now than prior days?
No, because I'm in a different galaxy.
Oh.
So I finished the game a couple times and have ended up in like you can reboot and go to a different galaxy. You can go back and forth if you have like established bases in the Euclid is the galaxy most people start in.
Yep.
But I'm like a few other galaxies through, and like so I picked this other one that's supposed to be like you're supposed to be able to find more interesting planets. And it was just true so far. I find paradise planets and like all these crazy grasslands and all these. It's really cool, but there's just not that many people.
If you intentionally left all the people behind. Yeah.
If you want to see people, you got to go to the Anomaly, which is like kind of the hub thing.
Yeah.
Or if you do the community events, so like I did the community event to get the Normandy, and the community event for this new update and stuff. And that, like, they send you to specific planets and specific places, and that's kind of the same for everybody. So you will go. That was interesting because it's the first time I've been to a lot of places that had already been discovered. It was stuff that is long. It was like almost like finding like a highway.
Interesting.
That, like, people had traveled through because everything was named, everything was discovered. You actually did see other ships fly around. You found like bases people had built on like quest locations that were like a giant tower that just said like here, because sometimes it's hard to track it down. So people just build landmarks.
Interesting.
So that was interesting. That was fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, you still. I mean, these things are gigantic.
Yeah. I mean, this game is gigantic.
And they've added things where it's like, for a while in the galaxy I'm in, I've just been sort of traveling inward towards the core of the galaxy as far as I could every time I did a jump. And I'm like, eventually I'll get to the center and I'll be fine. But you couldn't really tell how far you were. Now with either this update or the last one, they added like once you point yourself at the galactic center, it tells you how many light years you are from the galactic center. I am 668,000 light years. I can jump 3,000 light years at a time.
Wow.
That's going to take a while.
Yeah.
So, yeah, is the odds that you'll find anyone if you're not doing kind of the community events that kind of guide you through these areas, or if you're in the Euclid galaxy is pretty well explored, especially once you get closer to the center, that first galaxy that people start in. I did notice running through there, especially for some of the quests, like it was hard to find an undiscovered star system.
No.
Like just roaming through the galaxy map as best I could, I was just finding found systems. And at one point, one of the quests I had to do was discover and name a system.
Oh.
So, which makes it even worse because people were just branching out from the same area.
Right.
And I had to go out.
Just had to keep
way
going
out to find something, which is actually cool. You know, like that's.
Yeah.
I don't mind that, but it's like, you know, it's a thing that kind of makes you like really dig into the game system a little bit and see like, oh yeah, I got to find an unexplored planet. That's a new thing I haven't had to do before.
Now this is a free update, right? All the updates have been free.
All the updates are free.
That's pretty amazing. It's amazing what this game has done.
This is one of the. I mean, even I love the original game at launch anyway, but like this is one of the biggest turnaround stories in the history of the medium.
Yep, which actually transitions perfectly, and it was designed this way into our next topic.
Mm-hmm.
Which,
yeah, pick this up. If you haven't played No Man's Sky since it came out, this is a completely different game and a half.
Yeah.
And it still apparently does really well. You know, they sold millions of copies at launch, and this thing they sell another batch every time they put a big update out. And the price on this game has never fallen below half price.
Really?
They've never put this lower than $30.
Yeah.
And it still sells.
Because it's worth $30.
And it's like it's this game turns 6 in August.
It's insane, dude.
Like that's
really
a long
is insane.
time, and it's the next gen updates look good. There's like some ray tracing stuff. The reflections look cool. It runs at like a pretty solid 60. Like you can have companion animals. I used DNA splicing to make a bigger version of one of the animals I had, and it has a personality, and you can ride it, and it's crazy. Like there's so much in this.
It
game.
is an insane game at this point.
So much in the game,
particularly when you consider where it started.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty amazing what it's become ultimately.
Yeah, this is a text. I mean, they're in an unusual situation where they're such a small company, and they know exactly what they wanted to do, but they weren't able to achieve it, and they sold so well that they had years of operating budget just off the launch sales, and they just decided let's reinvest it and let's make this game what we wanted, and let's make this game what people wanted it to be. And they did it, and now
in some ways what they had promised too.
Yeah, but I'd say they hit what they promised probably 2 years ago, and they're still making more things that no one even considered.
Agreed, yeah. Vincent brings up a good point. He says, "Don't forget it's on Game Pass." So if you're a Game Pass member, you can get this new update for free as well.
And you can just weird little things I didn't even know. You can build all the vehicles and the exocraft, and you can build a giant mech. I'm like, cool, giant mech. But I didn't know there's another quest in that must have been like the last couple updates because I haven't played it since then. You go through this whole quest, and you basically get all this extra armor covering for the mech, and then you add a thing that gives it an AI. So now this mech can just follow you around and help you in fights, and like it's like a companion mech.
Huh, that's pretty cool.
And if you need to, you can jump into it and pilot it too.
Oh, really?
It's there's so much cool stuff in here.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing what they've done.
Yeah.
And again, that transitions nicely to the next topic, which is saving dying games. So this week, Matt, it was announced that Battlefield 2042 fell below 1,000 concurrent players, and everyone thought that was terrible, and it is because Battlefield 5.
Like Battlefield, yeah.
Well, right, Battlefield 5, which is still active, had 20,000 concurrent players in that same time frame, and it's old.
People have clearly decided what they want.
Which one they want to play? Yep. We thought that was insane, and then we found out that a game you mentioned earlier, Babylon's Fall, its concurrent player count fell below 10. 10 players, Matt.
Yeah. Well, now to be fair, their all-time 24-hour peak on Steam for Babylon's Fall was 148.
This is a disaster.
This is a bomb of unprecedented proportions.
It is, and Square Enix still is like doubling, tripling down on it.
Well, they've thrown too much money into it.
They have
to try.
Because the studio, Platinum, already has a bunch of DLC done, and it is working on other DLC. And so what I wanted to discuss here is...
Abort. Like, everybody just do something else. Holy shit. Like, you can't say Babylon's Fall. Like, it's over.
Bad money after good, yeah.
You want to talk about negotiating a PlayStation Plus deal.
You're right, though. So that's what I want to discuss, though, is reviving games like this. Because No Man's Sky did it. Now, it had huge sales out of the gate. People bought it. Regardless.
Also, it had a really cool idea.
It did.
Babylon's Fall does not.
But people were very disappointed with it at launch, or at least they said they were. And somehow, Hello Games managed to rebuild faith, because here's another thing. When this expansion came out for No Man's Sky, Hello Games also announced that it is working on a new game that is even more ambitious than No Man's Sky. They said that if we told you we had 1,000 people working on the game, you would still tell us it's not enough people. Already kind of doing the same thing it did before with promising this pie-in-the-sky game. Some people are saying it didn't learn its lesson. So
I think they did, and if they're saying that, they got something up their sleeve.
I kind of believe that too.
But we're just not going to see it until it's really, really ready.
Right.
Like,
so
they're not going to make that mistake again.
So this is kind of an apples and oranges comparison.
Sean Murray will never do another interview.
He really should. Because No Man's Sky had all that money at the launch to use to build the rest of the game and keep building on the game. You talk about Battlefield 2042.
Also, there's like 15 people at that company. It's a very small operation.
Yeah. So apples, oranges. These are big studios. Platinum, I don't think that team was all that big for Babylon's Fall.
But Square is a mega corporation.
Battlefield 2042 had a gigantic team.
Yeah.
And it also has plenty of resources to do what it needs to do to
Except time.
That's the question, though. How do you figure out, one, if a game is worth reviving, and if you decide that it is, how do you go about reviving it?
I mean, I think they are only very rarely worth reviving. And generally what needs to happen is you need to start over, which is in some ways what No Man's Sky did. Like, No Man's Sky began with sort of patching the holes, but then that is a different game now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Like, the game that's on that disc is not recognizable compared to what it is today, down to what elements are building what, Whereas, I think the other big starting over success story is probably Final Fantasy XIV.
That's another good one.
Again, they literally ended the world, shut it down, built another game, and relaunched it with complete acknowledgement of, we fucked it up, we're going to try it again. And it worked.
They're actually doing that with
great.
Ark Survival Evolved on Switch right now. So it launched for Switch. It was a complete mess and a disaster. But the studio realizes, a lot of kids play our game. There's a lot, Nintendo platforms. A lot of the younger kids spend a lot of time playing on Nintendo's platforms. Yeah. It's probably worth it for us to just completely rebuild the game from scratch for Switch because it will ultimately pay off for us.
Yeah,
is that a algorithm that every studio needs to kind of figure out before it decides whether it's worth doubling down on a game?
Somewhat. I think Ark is helped by the fact that there's not really anything else like it on Switch.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not a lot like it on a bunch of things, but Switch particularly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's the old throwing good money after bad problem. I don't know what Square's specifics are, but you got to cut and run from Babylon's Fall. Unless there's contract shit to fulfill,
right,
that nobody can get out of, you're not bringing that game back from the brink. It's
now
over.
The president of Square Enix just said last week that they're not. They're going to stick with it. They believe in the product.
Well, they're stupid.
When your player count's down to double digits,
I'm not going to call something a lost cause all that often, but no. Like Babylon's Fall was a loser from the start. You could tell from the early stuff.
Yeah.
And then once you get your hands on it, you're like, oh no.
Yeah.
You can't fix this. You could tear it down to the ground and rebuild it again, but why?
Right. Because the idea wasn't intriguing enough to get people on board.
No. It would have been better if you just let them make Drakengard 4. Yeah.
What about Battlefield 2042, though? It's a franchise that traditionally has done very well, both financially and for the most part, critically. It has a huge fan base in general.
I mean, yeah, but that fan base went back to 5.
It did, but is it too late to try to get them back?
Yeah, I think it is. I think 2042 is a lost cause. And I think you need to take some time, and you need to acknowledge that these things don't need to come out every year, and really decide whether we want to update these things as a platform and keep building on what's already there, or if we have a good enough idea or reason to launch a new version. I think these things need to last 3, 4, 5 years. I think you need to start thinking about the idea that a Battlefield game or a Call of Duty game or a Madden game needs to launch early on in a system's life, and that is the game for that system's life. You just keep updating it and adding to it, but you do not relaunch it over and over again. You don't have a team make a different Battlefield game every year.
Now, the problem, though, with that is if you want to, try different eras, this is, near future Battlefield. There's been, there's been World War II Battlefield.
You just have a platform called Battlefield, and you can do whatever the hell you want.
You choose whatever era you want to play in.
Pick an area. You have a nice little timeline interface or something. I'm going to pick World War I today. I'm going to pick the future today. I'm going to pick this weird Bad Company thing today.
Well, the other problem, too, with this game in particular is that DICE seems to be in denial over why the game has not done well. Mm-hmm. It blamed the launch of Halo Infinite for...
That's nuts.
I know.
Like that.
I know. So maybe the first thing you have to be able to do...
Halo Infinite's got its own problems.
I mean, maybe the first thing you have to do is accept the real problem, the real issue with why the game isn't successful, instead of making excuses for why it's not successful. I mean, you can look at this footage that we have here. There's bugs all over the place, like
bonk,
everywhere. Like,
well, it's also like it's funny that like these, especially like EA and the big companies, like they embraced the kind of the endless treadmill of online gaming plus the microtransaction model, but it's like you're not acknowledging that like you've spent all this time and effort trying to like find a way to hook people into these things and get them like addicted to filling the line up and to like being attached to all the things they've spent real money on buying to enhance their characters and enhance their cosmetics and stuff. But then you still want them to buy a totally different game every year and start over again. Yeah, and like you can't do both of those things. Like the center was not going to be able to hold at some point, and at some point you're going to make something that isn't enticing enough for enough people to leave the previous game they're invested in to move on to that, and that finally happened here. Like everybody was decided, like, no, I'm going to stick with everything I put into Babylon 5, the Battlefield 5. I mean, also funny, Babylon 5.
That's funny.
But yeah, so like that's you finally broke the back of this model, basically.
Bunko in chat brings up a good counterpoint. He says if you were to have a platform that had all those eras in it, the install size would just be gigantic.
True.
And but
it already is.
It is. I mean, to his point, though, this game's probably 100 gigs at this point. You start tacking on Battlefield 5, you get up to like half a terabyte.
Well, I think at that point, you maybe just need to decide what era does Battlefield take place in.
Or you just let people install the eras. So you just install whatever era you want to play.
I think you're fracturing the user base at that point.
Yeah, you are.
I think you need to decide what Battlefield is. Is it a World War II game? Is it a modern combat game? Is it a near future game? Is it a far future game? Like, pick one. Pick one and make it good. Like, that'll, I think kind of what 2042 is doing is sort of probably the sweet spot in terms of, like, the hardware you get to play with.
Yeah.
And kind of differentiating it from what Call of Duty tends to do these days.
Yeah.
My favorite Battlefield, of course, God, that's so bad.
It's so bad. The skybox just completely just disappeared.
Just unbelievable. Obviously my favorite Battlefield is probably still 1942. Like, I don't think Battlefield's ever topped it with a Wake Island demo, basically.
Yeah. That was kind of the peak, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was cool. I remember when it finally came out, because we played that for 8 months or something. Yeah. It was forever.
Pretty crazy.
And finally the full thing came out, and we're like, oh my god, finally all these other maps and stuff. We get to play all these other battles and like different sides, and get to play the Russians and like. I think it was like 2 days before I was like, should we just play Wake Island again?
Yeah.
And like even EA gave up. DICE gave up after a while, where they're like, okay, here's a Wake Island only mode. Just play a Wake Island over and over again.
Sweet Cheeks Magoo asks, is there a legal liability to fix games? Can releasing a broken game be seen as a scam? No, but maybe it should be.
Yeah, but good luck getting that through the Congress run by ancient boomers.
Yeah.
Like maybe one day when like the people who make those decisions are like
actually understand how games work.
Yeah, if you're talking about people our age and younger, in like 30 years, like I bet that would be something you could get through Congress or something.
Yeah.
Right now you need to explain to Mitch McConnell what a video game is, and you're never
good luck with that one.
They don't care. Like it doesn't matter. And you need a lobby. You need a lobby that will like give them some kind of financial thing of like, oh, it's in your best interest to have this not happen because you're all shareholders in these companies and you don't want consumers to be unhappy. So if you give them this, it gives them some kind of out and maybe gives them, I don't know, you establish some kind of FDIC for video game coding errors or something.
Also, a lot of our politicians just intrinsically are going to support big business. They're not going to support the little guy because big business is what gives them money for their campaigns.
It's very hard to. I mean, look, if you can go around, if you can have entire shops that sell you magic crystals,
right?
That, like cleanse people and shit. Like it doesn't matter. Like it doesn't matter. Like you can't prove any of this stuff. There's no such thing. I mean, unless it actively harms somebody.
Yeah.
It's, as long as you can show that like. I bought this game and it boots up and I can run around and shoot people with a gun in a digital space. Like then
it's going to be hard to prove.
It's going to be real hard to prove that you didn't get what you paid for.
It's true.
Like there's a level of nuance there that I just don't think you're ever going to be able to get past as some kind of like consumer protection thing. It's just too nuance and beyond that, it's not even like an established product that everybody can pick up and hold in their hand and say that this works or doesn't work. Whether code works on a system or not can be varying depending on the situation. It's
no, I do think
variable.
if you released a game that was completely broken,
oh sure, like I feel like you could probably have a class action case
lawsuit
for big rigs over the road racing,
where you get paid like $1.82.
Yeah,
and some lawyer ends up making like $400 million, and every single person who got burned.
Like a few things like that have happened. I think.
Yeah,
I remember a couple.
Yeah,
things
they
like
have.
That,
where the lawyers get rich and everybody else gets paid like
but
$1.50.
Usually, I mean, people tried to do that with No Man's Sky and it didn't work. Like,
yeah,
it doesn't. You're never going to get that level of nuance out of that.
Yep.
Especially because like whether it's good or bad remains an element of opinion. Like. It's one thing if you prove that a toy can harm a child, or like that it doesn't, it doesn't act as advertised. The X-ray specs you bought don't actually let you see through the bones in your hand.
Yeah.
But like, and also you have a whole reasonable expectation thing on that too.
What about player count, Matt? At what point do you think you get to the point where there's not enough players to revive a game? Like, I would argue 1,000. You're way past.
Yeah, well, especially with like 1,000 in a game where like there's 64 player battles. Yeah, like that's an appreciable.
That's like 3 games.
You've got close to 10% of the player base in one game at that point.
That's true. That's hilarious. And Cinetike brings up Cyberpunk 2077 was arguably a defective product when it launched for PS4.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think Skyrim
arguably was never anything but that on PS3.
That's true. Yeah. And I think there were class action lawsuits for Cyberpunk.
They tried, but nothing happened. It's not a
It's hard. Yeah,
it's class action stuff like that is very hard to get any traction or proof on, and B, once you're in the realm of tech like this and programming and what video games are, like you have to establish all this. You basically have to give the jury or the judge a crash course in how game programming works, and it's just not worth it. Like
it's not gonna work. Yeah.
It doesn't do you any good, and by the time like any of that would by the time. It took a long time for them to update Cyberpunk to work properly, in some kind of passable manner, but it still happened faster than you could bring lawsuits against them.
By the time you went to court, it would be fixed.
Yeah.
I mean, you could use it as a tactic to get them to fix the game, maybe.
Yeah, but you're still spending that money.
You are, yeah. You have to find a lawyer who will take the case pro bono, and that's not always easy.
And there's no glory in that for a lawyer.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. But I mean, I would argue Battlefield 20. I agree with you. It's a lost cause. If 1,000 people, I mean, and you figure there's probably
what in the world could this game do to bring you back to it?
And there's probably on PlayStation, there's probably 5,000 on Xbox. There's another 5,000. Still, that's not enough.
No.
Even if you change the game drastically, there's not enough evangelists left to go out and tell your story to social media to get people to come back and play.
No, it's a running game. I think it's more possible with single player things because you've already got the game.
Right.
Cyberpunk, and I know No Man's Sky is multiplayer technically, but like, it's I think it's different when it's like a game that does not require constant online engagement with an active audience of players versus something that like Cyberpunk, I just was like, I got tired of dealing with it, so I just put it aside. And then when they put that patch out a year and a half later, I started playing it again.
Now, do you think
that's a lot easier to get somebody to re-engage with? Yeah.
So Babylon's Fall, you can play by yourself.
Yeah,
it's harder to play by yourself, and it's preferable to play with others, but you can.
Yeah, theoretically, you could kind of patch that and rebalance it so it's more of a single player game. I just don't. It's not a good game,
right?
Yeah. And beyond like not being a good game in the sense that like that No Man's Sky was not a good game. Babylon's Fall isn't even a good idea for a game.
Yeah,
like that's the problem.
Well, it feels like a throwback.
No Man's Sky had promise, and you can see like they built towards this idea that they had and that we had in our heads about what the game could or should be. Babylon's Fall is just a generic hack and slash with a bunch of game as a service stuff getting in the way.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's basically like Phantasy Star Online.
Yeah, like just go play Astral Chain if you want to play a platinum game, or go play Nier, or hell, play Transformers Devastation. Like there's some. If you want the platinum games combat hit, there's like 7 other things you could play instead. And if you want like a game as a service style thing, just go play Destiny. The combat in this
isn't really vintage platinum either. I mean,
or if you want like weird shit from that same team, go play Nier or Drakengard.
Yeah,
like there's a lot of other options. Babylon's Fall is not something worth saving, in part because it's not trying to do anything that other things haven't done better from the same companies.
Yeah. Yep. It's It's hard to understand what happened with that game.
I mean, for God's sake, even Avengers is better than this.
Oh yeah, I'd much rather play Avengers than play Babylon's Fall, without a doubt.
Look at those ugly ass clothes.
Look at the hair.
What is he wearing? What is that?
Look at the hair.
Are they wearing plastic? Like, what is happening?
It's so bad. Every time we watch this B-roll, it's just
no one was ever meant to see these characters this close up, including the person who made them.
Yeah. So I guess we can both agree that both Babylon's Fall and Battlefield 2042 are lost causes.
I mean, I think Babylon's Fall is more so.
Yeah.
I mean, like, at least I could see Battlefield coming back in a different iteration. You know, you can put another Battlefield game out in the future and sort of redeem yourself with it. Babylon's Fall should be buried dark somewhere deep.
Do you think
somewhere alongside the radioactive waste?
Do you think that taking a game down and announcing we're going to rebuild this game, do you think that gives you enough juice that maybe when it comes back, people might give it another chance? Do you think it's at the very least, do you think it's a better tactic than just leaving the game up and slowly updating it over time?
I don't think it matters if you don't have a plan or something worthwhile.
Yeah.
It was the right call for Final Fantasy XIV was to start over.
Mm-hmm.
The right call with Babylon's Fall is probably just let it die and walk away because it's not worth anybody's time.
Yeah.
Battlefield, like I think 2042, you walk away and maybe offer some kind of refund thing or whatever.
Here's some skins for the next Battlefield.
Free copies of something. I really would look into very seriously, work on the next Battlefield, make sure it's really good, and if you own Battlefield 2042, you get some kind of trade-in thing for certain 50% off or something.
Or you could do something where in the next Battlefield you get this tank that only the people who bought Battlefield 2042 get, or something.
Yeah, but you're gonna run it now. You're just gonna piss people off again.
Yeah,
it's you don't want to give anybody an actual advantage for that.
The other thing too is the way that game works. It's how are you the only one who can spawn that tank? It doesn't work within the framework of the game either.
No, you got to give somebody some kind of monetary incentive to get involved in the next game.
Yep.
And you need to take special care that the people who invested in your failed one don't feel like they got screwed.
Yep.
With Babylon's Fall, I think you just have to sort of cut your losses because it's not like you're ever going to need to try to sell somebody Babylon's Fall 2.
Yeah, I don't think there's a sequel coming for this one.
But Battlefield needs to find a way to get people to re-engage, and
that's a good point.
You also have to you have to do it in a way that doesn't make the people who spent $60 or more on 2042 any more screwed than they already are.
Yeah. Yep. It'll be interesting to see what EA does and what DICE does, because as I said, they have really yet to take responsibility for making a bad game. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think the first step for any of this is admitting you screwed up.
Yeah.
I mean, with any mistake you make, the first step to fixing it is always admitting you made the mistake in the first place.
I'm sure that part of it has to be that they probably blame EA for it, and I'm sure EA thinks it's DICE's fault.
Right.
There's a lot of finger pointing internally, I'm sure, because maybe it was marketing that forced them to not be able to delay the game. Who knows?
Well, I mean, outwardly, as someone who obviously didn't work on the project, it seems like it's more EA's fault, because how could you play the game and not know it's broken, and then force the studio to put it out?
The game needed another year, basically, and EA wouldn't give it to them, would be my guess.
Yeah.
Again, they need to learn that these big franchise shooters do not need to come out yearly.
Yeah, I agree.
It's just not,
Well, they even figured it out with Call of Duty.
Yeah,
finally.
Well, it took Microsoft buying them to do that.
Yep.
First year without a new Call of Duty since 2007.
Yeah, we don't have to worry about shareholders bailing because you don't have a new game every year. It's funny what you can do.
Yeah. Or if it's not the only one game you put out every year.
Right.
Because what else does Activision do? Especially when you remove Blizzard.
I mean, Activision itself, not a lot. You get a crash something or other every other year, basically.
That's only recent.
Then you get these weird one-offs like Sekiro that just come out of nowhere.
Yeah, and that was just a publishing deal.
Right. Yeah.
It's
weird.
It's weird that it shows what a juggernaut Call of Duty is, that they can survive on just that game. Basically.
Oh yeah. I mean, look, they're going to put out a new Warzone next year.
Yeah, and look at
which will make
EA's pretty much the same thing at this point. It's EA's 3 games now?
Pretty much. I mean, all publishers are. That's why we're in this crazy drought that we're going to be in for the next 2 months, Matt. Because publishers just aren't releasing games anymore. It's completely different from the way it was even 10 years ago.
Yeah, well, there's still indie stuff coming out.
Yeah, but man, I've been looking for good indie stuff to play to talk about on this show, and there isn't a lot of that either.
It's a lot of it's only PC. It's part of the, if you're just browsing the consoles, you're going to say,
I mean, I browse everything. I work on Sifted.
Play Norco.
I see everything. Play what?
Norco.
Norco? I'll look into it. I will. But again, you'll see what I ended up playing this week here in a bit.
It's a point-and-click adventure game.
Yeah,
but I'm
okay with that.
It's a Southern Gothic horror kind of style thing with some cybery things to it. It's very unique.
Matt, we get into the second week of May, you're going to be shocked at what we're playing. Yep. So anyway, it sounds like we've came to the conclusion that for the most part, once games get to the state that these two games are at, there's really no saving them at all. No Man's Sky had a lot of negative consumer sentiment, but it had a workable game. It didn't quite have all the features, and it had a ton of money that it could use to fix a lot of the problems that the game had. So it is kind of a unique case with No Man's Sky versus a lot of other games that come out of the gate really weakly. But I think really what I've realized through this discussion is that No Man's Sky is kind of a unicorn. That stuff, it just doesn't happen very often, that you put out a game that's bad, that's rejected by fans who are excited to play it, and you manage to turn it around to a place where people... I trust Hello Games. Do you?
Yeah. I mean, now I do.
Right. And when that game came out, at that point, I'd have been like, well, crap, I don't trust these guys at all. I would probably never buy another game from these guys, and here we sit 6 years later, and it did take a long time. But I'm ready to believe again. I'm excited about this game that they're talking about now that's looks like it could take 1,000 people to make. I'm like, all right. Got me again. Am I being a sucker?
Maybe. We'll see.
Yeah. But you believe too, right?
Yeah. I mean, I do think they've learned something from all this.
How could you not?
Yeah. And I'm sure they're not going to show us anything for it until they're sure it's ready to go.
And I have a feeling they're going to be a lot more reserved with what they talk about before the game comes out.
Yeah.
And maybe make sure that the features that they're talking about are
we're probably not going to find out what that game is until a month before release.
That'd be my guess too.
Yeah.
Really know what it is. Yep. So there you go. That's Matt and I trying to figure out whether you should revive games and if it's worth it. And I think we've come to the conclusion that it's not. It's just better to cut bait and move on if you have a real big stinker in the games industry. All right. Next up, we're going to talk about crypto and NFTs. I know it's something everybody loves to hear about because I know our audience is all about the crypto and the NFT. I will say this about y'all. I am proud that our community has seen through the visage of crypto and NFT because a lot of communities online have not done that. How do you feel about crypto, Matt?
Crypto,
just like Bitcoin or Ethereum?
Oh, that's nonsense.
Yeah.
You're
Did you buy any Bitcoin?
Of course not.
No, even back in the day.
I own land. I don't need.
You own the real
things.
thing. Yeah.
The thing about crypto is it's. I even saw a thing the other day where this company was a crypto broker thing, and they say they got hacked or whatever. They got all the coins got stolen by some what it really probably is somebody clicked something they weren't supposed. Most of the crypto theft things are because it's so unregulated that people don't know what's legit and what isn't, and they accidentally give somebody access to things they shouldn't have.
Yeah. And
they posted a thing that said, if you return 90% of what you stole from us, we'll let you keep the remaining 10%. And I'm like, okay, so you're saying if you bring back 90% and we'll let you keep 10%, or you can just keep 100% and we can't do anything about it. I don't think that offer is really going to. And it's kind of interesting to watch the crypto bros slowly discover why the FDIC is a thing. Mm-hmm. There's a reason the Fed exists. There's a reason all these safeguards are there. There's a reason you don't trust your general currency to some guy.
But even the FDIC only backs you to $250K.
Oh, yeah. And they don't know that either. You got people losing. I think the theft in question was $70 million.
Right. Yeah.
And it's just, but at the same time, the only reason that is it's valued at that, but try to get that much actual cash for it, and you're not gonna. That's why the NFT thing is a pyramid scheme. Was because if you want to actually get the value of what the perceived value is out of this into real money, new money needs to come into the system. So you have to, sort of like how Amway works. You know, you need other people spending money to buy these products so you can make the money back and don't need to have the product around anymore. And
Cutco knives are that way too.
Yeah. And the biggest element, the biggest tell on this is that if something really does make you that kind of money that easily, you don't tell anybody about it.
Right.
Like they'd be keeping it to themselves.
Exactly.
But they need new liquid cash to be infused to make it a legitimate or a functional like system, and that's why they need new blood.
Yeah.
So crypto stuff, like there is sort of probably a future for the blockchain in terms of how currency works on a kind of a macro federal level. But right now you're looking at what is essentially a hobby from people who don't know any better to some degree.
Blockchain is also a good verification system.
Well, blockchain is just a method, basically. It's not a thing in itself, really. And it's a technology that will be used for many things in the future. But it ain't this. Yeah. Like it's just sort of a weird side road to that. And the NFT stuff is even weirder. And the thing is, like, the NFT stuff is such a tiny fraction of the crypto. Crypto, I think it was something like 325 million people have some kind of cryptocurrency in some form, and something like 300,000 have NFTs. That's nothing.
Yeah, I just sold all my crypto not long ago when they were talking about how Russia was using crypto to get around the financial sanctions. I was like, I'm out. I mean, just sold everything I had. I didn't have a ton, but
this is extremely volatile on top of it. It's like,
like Bitcoin, I think is legit. I think it's going to stick around.
Yeah, I mean, it more or less does what it says, but it's just sort of, at a certain point, this is all going to settle into being just sort of another way to pay for things.
Like PayPal or Venmo or whatever.
Yeah, the evangelism is unwarranted. It's just sort of another way to do it. Yeah. And the big players will settle into that kind of thing, or like maybe even Ethereum. And so, Ethereum is sort of
Ethereum's borderline. Like its value's like pretty stable. Yeah. But its value is only 3,000 per coin right now. So it doesn't take a lot for it to go to zero. Like Bitcoin can lose 10,000 in value and a month later it's back. It's like a stock almost, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially that with like...
It's never going to just explode again like it did. Like, you've missed the boat, really, is what I'm getting at, with getting rich off of Bitcoin. And what a lot of people are doing is they're chasing that same thing with all these little coins. They're like, oh, it's pathetic, honestly, watching these people like go and... Because they're pumping it. So they're trying to get people to buy... It's the pyramid scheme. They're pumping it on their social media channels, trying to get people to buy it so that the coin value goes up, so they can sell all the coin that they have, and they can cash out, leaving all the people who are underneath them, underneath the pyramid, with nothing. Because if you sell all your coin, the value of the coin goes down. All the people at the bottom who bought it also at a higher price, now all of a sudden they've lost all their money, and the person at the top takes the cash and runs. And you guys are probably wondering why we're talking about this, and that's because there's a game called Axie Infinity that is really...
Which I had never heard of before this week.
Before this week?
Yeah.
Pactor talked about it on Pactor Factor like a month and a half ago. So I ended up doing some research on it and learning about it then. But this is a game where it basically is a pyramid scheme. People come in, and the Axies are... And let me just get the B-roll running here so you guys can see what we're talking about here. The Axies, it's basically Pokemon running on the blockchain with NFTs and a crypto coin.
Oh, no, I have seen this. Yeah.
And the Axies, which are the Pokemon...
I did not realize that was the name of this game. I've seen footage of this game before.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the Axies are basically the Pokemon that you use to fight in the game. Well, they're very expensive. And so most people who start playing the game cannot afford to buy their own Axies to fight. So what they do is they rent the Axies from the people higher up in the pyramid. And they play the game, and they grind along, and they start earning their own crypto coin that is in the game as they play. And so the idea is that you start at the bottom. You are basically working for the people at the top. In fact, you are legitimately working for these people.
It's basically a sweatshop.
It is. It's a sweatshop. And a lot of the people who are doing it are in places like the Philippines that are sort of underdeveloped countries where there's not a lot of opportunity to make money. And it's a lot like the gold farming from World of Warcraft back in the day. And what happened is North Korea hacked this game and took $600 million of the crypto.
Yeah.
And so, because that happened, all that money was taken out of the economy. The developers of this game started printing money, which inflated the value of the money, which means that it's like worth nothing now. And all the people at the bottom are like, why am I doing this? And they quit working. Mm-hmm. They stopped playing the game. They stopped farming. And all the people at the top are like, oh, crap. Mm-hmm. I worked all this time to finally get to the top of the pyramid. And when I finally get my chance to cash out, everything goes to crap. It's crazy. It really
it's basic economics. It's just like everybody learned a very hard lesson in the perceived value of things there.
Yeah, and Ari got to his son in chat says Axie has managers who invest and have people do the grinding. In poor countries, it earns them money more than a regular job. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does. It did. It doesn't anymore. Until all the crypto got hacked. And what's North Korea going to do with $600 million? That's scary. But it all got hacked.
That's kind of chump change in terms of country budget.
I don't know about North Korea. That might be a windfall for North Korea.
No, they don't have resources, but they have money.
Yep.
They'll probably just throw it more into like guidance systems or something.
Yep. And the characters in this are the NFTs. The Pokemon, the Axies are the NFTs in this game, and this is all built on the Ethereum blockchain. And then you use the Axies to farm the currency. It's called Smooth Love Potion. And the Smooth Love Potion, which is his crypto, is what has just hit rock bottom because of inflation. And so all the high rollers in this game are left. They have nobody to do the farming for them, and they've lost all their workers.
I mean, I guess the quote unquote good news is that most of the people who are on top of this also have investments in other things because like you don't get into something like this without already having real money. Mm-hmm. So they'll just move on to something else.
Who will?
The people at the top.
Well, the people at the top, they spent their money so that they own the NFTs so that other people can then rent the NFTs to make money.
Yeah, but I'm sure they have other investments and things, and they had money to start with, so they're just going to go do something else.
I don't know, man.
You do not get into the top of the crypto bracket without having a lot of money to start with. Yeah. That's part of the problem with it.
Well, I think the other part of the problem, though, is that a lot of people go all in. They think it's like this get-rich-quick...
Some people do, but those are what I guess you would call the crypto equivalent of nouveau riche. Yeah. Like someone who's already got that kind of money knows how to invest and knows to leave something behind. And I mean, that's rookie shit. Like, you got to leave enough behind to live on at the very least.
Well, the managers in this, their Axies, their NFTs are now worth 10% of what they cost for them to buy, buy, same difference. You
should maybe look into the idea of like how easy it was to have all that stolen. Like,
how did they hack into it? Yeah.
I mean, I guarantee you that's human error somewhere.
Oh, yeah, of course. That's what it always is.
You can call hack, whatever you want, but usually it's just somebody didn't know what they were doing. It like gave somebody access to something they weren't supposed to have.
Well, I saw a story about a guy who lost like $200 million because he had accidentally thrown out like his key.
His key, and so he's just got a hard drive with all this Bitcoin on it, and he can't get to it.
And so he went to the municipal city, and was like, I will pay whatever it costs to go into the dump and dig through to try to find this piece of paper. And he's like, I'll pay the sanitation workers 4 times their salary. I'm willing to spend $20 million to get this piece of paper back. And the city was like, F you. No, we're not doing it. Because they were like, it could set a precedent where every time this happens, we're going to have people, and honestly, there's privacy concerns with letting a citizen just go into the dump and start digging up people's trash. And so they were like, no, we don't care how much money you offer us for this. Because he kept upping the offer. Being like, okay, what about $30 million? What about $40 million? This is half of your city budget.
Tattoo it on the bottom of your foot or something.
Yeah, but then other people can see it when you fall asleep or what. It's crazy. Matt, do you think that this type of a game is ever going to succeed? Or do you think that this is going to be a cautionary tale that will keep people away forever?
I mean, this is a scam as old as time, so no, it's not going to. I mean, there'll be
it's a Ponzi scheme.
Like sure.
Yeah.
Probably won't look the same. Probably, I'm sure they will make all the guarantees in the world that this is not going to happen again, but it will. Yeah, it's not. And the other thing that always gets me about these games is they're not fun.
I know. It's just a cheap knockoff of Pokemon.
Why do you want? I mean, I guess I get it if you're talking about like
But no one's playing this for fun. They're playing it to make money.
Like I mean,
it's play to earn.
Yeah, it's another job. If you're talking about getting, it's a better paying job than you can get in certain countries. Like that's one thing, but like, would kill you to make it fun. Like,
I mean, this is a poster child for play to earn. This is the first play to earn game that had some semblance of success.
Yeah.
And Matt, I hate to tell you this because we just talked about this on the show last week. You were talking about Jet Set Radio. Sega announced today that it's working on Jet Set Radio and Crazy Taxi games, and people believe that they're going to be free-to-play NFT-driven games.
Yeah, I saw that.
So with that in mind, it doesn't sound like this has scared anyone off.
No.
I mean, Square Enix, the president of Square Enix, is still all over this stuff, saying that like eventually he'll start paying players with NFTs and crypto to create expansions to his games, to Square Enix's games.
But that's not a thing that's going to happen.
You don't think it is?
Of course not. That's nonsense. The NFT thing's already over for the most part, especially in the game space. It never got any traction to begin with.
I saw the one story last week where a guy bought some NFT for like $38 million or something insane, and then he's like,
somebody offered him $3,600.
Yeah,
or something. Yeah, that's because it's just perceived value of things that don't have any value.
The false scarcity of it is what is
well, and also like people don't understand what they're buying. You're not buying the art. You're not buying the picture. You're not buying the thing.
You don't own the rights to it.
You're buying a space on a database.
Yeah.
And the only thing that has value is that space on that database. And if no one cares about having that space on that database, your thing is worthless.
Yeah.
And guess what? No one cares about the space on any database.
That's crazy.
If it's not called Bitcoin, that's the other thing is like the only thing that tracks that gets tracked by the blockchain is the transaction.
Right.
You could shut that computer with that database down and run with the money, and many people have.
Yeah.
And like you have no recourse. You have a record of having made that transaction, but you can't get that back.
Now, somehow the government has managed to recover some crypto. I don't know how.
A lot of times it's because it's actually stored on solid state object on drives. And, you've got a drive. People keep a drive, a separate actual physical drive with their Bitcoin on it. And there's a lot of horror stories, sort of like the guy with the dumb. There's horror stories of forgetting or losing the encryption code or the password to that drive. I've seen people post where they're like, I've got this drive, it's got $700,000 worth of Bitcoin on it, but I lost the password to it like 6 years ago, and I'll never be able to open it again. Mm-hmm. So like you can recover some stuff if it's actually on physical hard drives, because that does happen sometimes. But often it's just digital transactions, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that they're going to trudge forward with this stuff. I think it's going to keep happening.
Oh, they're going to keep trying, but I don't think,
Will it ever be successful? No.
What does successful mean?
Well,
successful just means made some money for the people at the top.
Exactly. Success means like the people at the top got paid out before everyone at the bottom bailed.
Yeah.
That's not a success by my standards anyway.
It's a success by their standards because that's what they're trying to do.
Right.
But if the success is like making a fun game that people play for a long time, none of these are ever going to be that because they're not. I mean, and look.
What if they did make a really good game that's really fun to play, and it is play to earn, where if you play, what if they made a Pokemon game with NFTs and crypto?
I don't know what that would be, though.
Well, it would be because you play Pokemon and you earn crypto or NFTs. You're earning your Pokemon by playing.
But to earn it, you're going to have to do something nobody wants to do.
Yeah.
You have to do a thing that's not fun, because otherwise why would you be paid to do it?
But what I'm saying is, like, what if the game is fun? And you could actually manage to snare a lot of people into participating. What if it's actually a good game instead of...
I don't know what that looks like.
Yeah.
Like, in terms of how the model needs to work to it needs
it's going to have to be grindy.
It has to be a grind.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way around. And look, this is the natural evolution of the mobile game model.
It is.
It's just that, like, writ large, and... now instead of like having like
Axie Infinity isn't on consoles. It's
no, and having more of having more of a shorter treadmill or a cosmetic thing, like what are you gonna do?
Yeah,
like there's it's just the end of it. Like the end result is sort of like. Now you have a thing that's going to make you money, but the money is intangible, and the money could go away at any moment because someone could make the wrong decision or press the wrong button, and people make out with all of it, and it disappears, and everything crashes. Like, there's no stability to it, and there's no fun to it. So, like, it's just a new way to exploit people.
Yeah, look, here's a rule of thumb I would follow: is if it all comes down to you have to trust a human being, bail. Because if you feel like you can trust somebody you don't know with $600 million, you're a fool. Mm-hmm. Run as quickly as you can. Eventually, someone in that human chain is going to burn you. It's just going to happen. One of those people is going to be unscrupulous, and they're going to do it, and they're going to take and who knows? They say right now North Korea took the money. Do we know North Korea took the money, or is it the dudes who created
someone in North Korea,
right? Or is it some dude at Axie Infinity that's like, I can make this look like North Korea took it. Let's take the money and run. Like, you just don't know. Trusting human beings, probably one of the dumbest things you could ever do when you're talking about big sums of money.
I mean, that's why there are entities like the Fed and like the FDIC
to protect us,
because that entity is full of enough individuals that no one person is going to be able to get away with something that huge.
When you have one guy who can shut down,
everybody's got to watch each other.
Yeah, when you have one guy who can shut down the servers for a coin, that's insane, and that's what's happening with all these little crypto coins. Like, people just make them up. There's like 20 coins launched a day. And you look at these like crypto bros that have lost their damn minds. They're just like, if you like look at their bio on Twitter, it's just a bunch of hashtags from all the stupid coins that they're basically trying to pump and dump. That's what it is. They get all their followers to buy it. I didn't, like, the Kardashians do this. They pumped up a crypto coin, everyone went and bought it, and then they bailed and made
something like that.
Yeah, like, it's bad. Stay away from crypto, generally. Like, I would only recommend ever buying Bitcoin, maybe Ethereum, NFTs.
I mean, there's a difference. There's a difference.
I don't know why I'm telling you guys this. You guys have all figured it out.
There's a difference between buying crypto to like have an alternate source of money to like spend in through that and using it as a get rich quick scheme.
Right.
Those are two different things.
To me, those days are over with crypto. If you try to get rich quick on crypto, you're probably going to end up burned.
I mean, yeah, but that's also sort of like how it is,
what risk reward?
Yeah, also like it's going to be a while before any of this settles down, and eventually we'll probably end up with a system very similar to what we have in terms of FDIC and sort of regulation.
There's going to be regulators eventually. Yeah, it's going to be regulated, which was the whole allure of it in the first place.
And just
unregulated.
And this year and last year to some degree, the IRS started taking a note of it. Yep. So, like, the whole idea that
my accountant just asked me
the whole idea that you can do this thing and be like, oh, we don't have to follow any regulations. It's like, no, that's not how anything works. If there is a value to it and a perceived value to it, the IRS is going to come for your ass.
Yeah, my accountant, for the first time ever, when I got my taxes done like a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, got crypto.
Yep.
Had never asked me that before. Mm-hmm. Now he is.
But now it's part of the deal.
Yep, it is. So. Stay away from this crap, people. Definitely stay away from Axie Infinity. That has already crashed and burned.
Yeah, I don't think you need to tell anybody that.
There's no reviving that game. That game is toast at this point. And yeah, I mean, Mike's Q makes up a good point. Avoid get-rich-quick schemes in general, because they're almost all scams. Mm-hmm. If you could get rich quick, everybody would be doing it. Yeah. Always remember that.
And if it worked, they wouldn't be telling you about it.
Exactly. They would be hiding it and hoarding it. So
they need you for something if they're trying to invite you into it.
Yeah. They need you to...
And it is never to your advantage.
Yeah. They need money somehow, and they're going to get it from you. And they're going to take it, and they're going to run. Mm-hmm. All right. Let's move on. We're going to talk next about Rockstar. This week, it wasn't even announced by Rockstar, Matt. People just discovered that a lot of transphobic content that was in Grand Theft Auto 5 had been removed. Or replaced, or otherwise made to disappear for people who had not played the earlier versions of the game. So far, it's only been found in the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series versions of Grand Theft Auto 5. There was a doll that was in an arcade in Grand Theft Auto 5 that was like a transgender doll, basically. They removed the doll and then just replaced it with another doll and kind of shuffled the dolls around so people wouldn't notice that it was gone. One of the character models, which was a drag queen, the character model is still in the game in the director's mode, but it doesn't spawn outside of clubs like it used to, and all the voice samples that character model used to fire off, they're all removed from the code now. And I think what a lot of people are wondering is, why did this happen? We were just talking about sort of the cultural significance and the cultural decision-making at Rockstar through the years. I think it was just last week on GameFace, and then this happens. Matt, why do you believe that this stuff has been removed from Grand Theft Auto 5? Do you think it's Rockstar heading off problems at the past? Do you think Rockstar has grown up in a way and has decided that there's certain lines that it doesn't want to cross anymore? Why do you think that this happened?
I think it happened because Rockstar has grown up a bit and has taken the temperature of the room, and the people who wrote those jokes and think they're hilarious don't work there anymore. Yeah, because these are from 10 years ago.
They are. Yeah, I mean, it's not 9 years, almost a decade ago.
And good. Like, I don't think that's a product you should be trying to sell these days. It probably could cause some problems.
Yeah.
There's been some backlash to this, but those people are stupid. So,
yeah.
I don't know. It's a better game without transphobia in it. So
I agree with that. A lot of the arguments that you're seeing from the other side, people who disagree with that, are that, that Rockstar has changed its art, giving into societal pressures, things like that. It's affecting the way the art was made by Rockstar.
That's not art, it's garbage.
Yeah.
So, and I will not back down on that one. Like, I don't care. Like, it's offensive garbage, it's offensive shit, and removing it from the game only makes the game better. And Rockstar and all artists are allowed to evolve and think that they don't want to present that face to the world anymore. And certainly they don't want to sell this product to the world anymore. They have not gone back and removed it from the previous versions of the game. They're saying the version of this game we're about to start selling again, we don't want that in it. And that is a valid choice, and that is also a valid artistic choice to make.
Do you think they'll go back and remove it from the older versions?
I don't know. I certainly wouldn't be against the idea of doing that, but at the same time, it feels like
pointless
why?
At this point.
Yeah, you've sold them. Like, if anybody had a problem with it, they've already made the complaints, and they certainly have, or they've refused to buy that version of the game. Mm-hmm. It's just, and I don't see any pressure on them to I
don't see any pressure on them at all. I mean, there was no class action lawsuit. There was no petitions.
If there's one company in the game industry that does not care or feel pressure from anyone for any reason, is Rockstar. I don't see any reason this happened outside of internal forces saying, like, we don't want to have this in the game.
Yeah.
And they're allowed to do that.
Well, yeah. I mean, think about games are a unique art form. And that you put them out there, and this is changing over time with hard drives and things like that, but you put them out there, and that's kind of, people expect that that's it. That's the game. That's the art. A painter, like, how many layers of the Mona Lisa are there? There's like...
Oh, there's other stuff under there.
Yeah, there's all this other stuff.
Happens all the time.
Right. Other artists have been allowed to amend their art. Mm-hmm. How many rewrites are there in the greatest books?
Yeah. I mean,
there's weird. Just don't know or see.
Yeah, but also people are bad at consuming media. They are bad at understanding how any of this works. I remember there was a period where I think it was Sterling. Was it Sterling?
Who has COVID, by the way, and does not sound good.
No, they did not sound good. But there was a. I think it was Sterling, but there was a point at which, and it was in the discussion, in the arguments over censorship and whatever, mm-hmm. somebody found out or pointed out that. That Sterling's rants, like the videos, the Jimquisitions and stuff, were edited. That, like, they shot footage and pieced it together.
Edited it together.
And
like video production.
And, like, suddenly a small group, but some of them freaked out that, like, that was censorship, that they weren't being allowed to see the whole video that Jim had shot. And they had to, and
that's hilarious.
And Sterling had to say, like, they had to say, like, that's how everything works in video. Like, you don't want to see me sitting here clearing my throat or getting the line wrong 14 times.
Yeah.
You just want to see a video where I say what I want to say.
Right.
And they had to labor to make this point that, like, editing is not censorship. Also, like, even if it were under certain circumstances, I can't force myself, like, no one forced Rockstar to do this. This is not censorship. This is an artistic editorial choice.
Yeah.
And it's a valid one. And they should think about doing more of them, because this is certainly not the only example of GTA 5 punching down at someone.
Yeah.
Maybe this is the most visible, but, like, there's a, and I would hope that this, I hope this bodes somewhat well for GTA 6's tone and content, in the sense that,
that was my next question. What does this mean for the future of Rockstar's games?
I mean, I think this is only an element, only an indication that they've maybe realized that their satire can't follow that same sort of, like, oh, everyone's a target thing, because there are valid targets and there are invalid targets, and you don't need to make fun of people who are already on the ropes.
Do you think that's where the anger is coming from here? Is that the people who are angry about this fear that when Rockstar makes the decision that there are legitimate targets and illegitimate targets, that they're going to be the legitimate target?
That could be, especially if you're talking about straight white men. Mm-hmm. But, like, I mean, most of the complaints seem to be, I mean, I don't know how I don't know how good faith the arguments are about like, oh, they're gonna just change everything, want to go back and change everything. It's like, well, okay, I mean that's an argument. That's just slippery slope nonsense. This is a fallacy.
It's like the N-word that is used ad nauseum in San Andreas. Some people have pointed to that. It's like, okay, if you're gonna remove the trans jokes, why wouldn't you remove the N-word from the games? And I think people wonder like where you draw.
I would argue because that the N-word usage in that game is mostly from black characters.
It's authentic,
and it is authentic to African American vernacular English, of what it's trying to portray, and it is not used as a cheap shot or a cheap punchline for things. And the white people who say it are portrayed as bad for saying it. The trans stuff in GTA 5, the transphobic stuff, is just ha trans people.
Yeah, no, you're right.
There's a difference there, and if you can't see that, I don't really care.
Yeah, I think it's that they don't want to see it.
Yeah. And I don't see this as like, oh, they're not going to be edgy anymore or whatever. That's not edgy. It's just shitty.
Yeah.
So I don't have a problem with the change. I think it's a positive change. I think it shows that Rockstar maybe recognizes that there does come a responsibility when you are, firing with such a broad spread on things, and that, humor evolved. There was even I even saw this earlier this week. Someone posted like, this is a trans joke from an issue of Playboy from like 1981, and it's not offensive, and it's actually funny. And it's about it's a joke about these three guys are friends, and they drink at the same bar all the time, and one of the friends becomes a woman, transitions into a woman, is a trans woman, and goes and has a surgery and comes back, and her friends are like, oh wow, like what was the worst part? It's not they're talking about, oh yeah, but that wasn't the worst part. And they're like, well, what was the worst part? Was it having your penis chopped off? And she's like, no, that wasn't great, but it wasn't the worst part. And the guy said, well, it must have been your balls. Having your balls chopped off was worse. And she goes, no, that wasn't it either. That was also not fun, but it wasn't it. And they're like, well, what was it? And she says, the worst part was having my salary cut in half.
that's a good,
and that's pretty funny.
That's a good joke.
It targets inequality. It targets like injustice. It makes like, it uses the trans.
You can do it.
You can do it
in a tasteful way.
Yeah, and it's comment. The punchline is not the trans person. The comment. The comment being made is about society. It's punching up at the injustices that she faces, and really that everybody faces.
That women face, for sure.
And so. And that was in 1981 in a porn magazine. Comedy can absolutely be done. Yeah. You just have to know what you're aiming at.
Yeah.
And when you recognize that, like what GTA 5 was aiming at with those jokes was just like, ha, it looks like a man in a dress when trans people look like this. Like that's not a joke. That's not even fun. It's like what are you gaining from that? What are you saying for that? Because at least a lot of the satire in GTA really does have something to say about society and does have something to say about American culture.
How about the idea that
there's more relevant commentary on American culture in watching Michael try to do those yoga poses than every stupid transphobic thing Rockstar has ever put in all their games.
Yeah. And how about if like Rockstar just is like, the joke isn't funny?
Right.
What if it just decides to...
I mean, to be fair, you can't go down that path too far with Rockstar, or you'll have no game left.
The whole game will be deleted.
But like, no, it's. I mean, I think it's a valid option and a valid choice that they've made, and I think it's smart to take it out of this. It sends a signal to say like, yeah, we are, not a virtue signal, but it sends a signal to say like, yeah, we were listening, we're aware, and we know that we need to change with the times.
They still haven't announced this officially. Like Rockstar has made no statement about it. Like it just made the change and just sent it out. And
I mean, I think that's the way to do it. You don't make it a big deal. You say like, oh, we don't want that anymore. We're going to change that.
Yeah.
And like people notice, but Rockstar doesn't need to ask anyone's permission to change their own work.
Yeah. I also agree with you. I don't think that this change to this game denotes that Rockstar's games are going to fail to be edgy going forward. You don't need things like this to make a game edgy. There are a billion other ways for your game to have edge without stuff like this. Like, Rockstar's done it.
Yeah.
Like, there's not stuff like this in Red Dead Redemption 2. That game's still edgy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it still pushes the envelope in a lot of ways. Like, there's situations in that game where it makes me feel a little uneasy, and I like that about art. But you don't have to, as you say, punch down to do it.
Yeah, there's a difference between something that portrays an uncomfortable situation and really has something to say about it, and something like what they removed here, which is just like, ugh.
Yeah.
You know, it's just gross. It's and you think about, and I think about, I see stuff like that and I'm just like, ugh, like there's no need for that. And then you think about some of my friends who are trans who see that and see themselves in that joke, and that's even worse.
Yep.
Like, why do you want to make that person feel like that when they already have so many things that they're up against in normal life anyway?
Now, what would you say, Matt, to people who say that's reality, that's real life? There are people that look at trans people that way, and that's just the way it is. And if you remove stuff like that, you're maybe making a game less realistic.
I would say that that is false. I would say that is not how reality is, because the game is portraying something specifically and kind of holding up what would be probably considered a straw man to make that joke happen, if you want to call it a joke.
Yeah.
It's not the same thing as saying like, and you're not really, you're mocking an individual human being at that point. You're not, for something that they can't really control. Like most of the functional humor in something like GTA works because of who the characters are. Like all the humor around Michael, even if some of the humor is centered on the idea that he is a successful, monetarily successful white guy, the humor mostly comes from who he is. Like, most of the stuff that's funny with Franklin isn't because he's a black guy who lives down in South Central Los Santos. The humor comes from the fact of how he reacts to things.
Yeah. Because of his.
Yeah. And him interacting with this other world of, he's clearly, no stranger to crime. Because of everyone in GTA is, but like once he gets involved with Michael and Trevor, he's like, a lot of the humor with Franklin comes from the fact that he doesn't know what to make of these idiots.
Well, yeah, he's a fish out of water at that point because of his experiences. His life experience has made him a different person. That when he interacts with these other people who have done the same thing in different walks of life, it's this weird juxtaposition of people.
Right, but most of the humor in terms of the core story of GTA 5 comes from who these characters are, not what they are.
Yeah.
And that's a very different kind of humor than some of the tangential humor you see in GTA. And I think GTA has had that problem in general as well. Like a lot of it, most of Laszlo's stuff on the radio has been of a similar sort of lazy, not offensive necessarily, but just sort of lazy.
Yeah.
It's just like, there's an element of, like the at its most sort of bland and uninteresting outside, offensive aside. I'll take the idea of being offended by any of that. A lot of it's offensive because it's so boring to me. It's just I'm tired of listening to this crap. It's like the tired old trope of like, it's like, oh, what's the deal with airline food? Like the old the old early Seinfeld jokes about like what is the deal with airline food? Like a lot of the most unmemorable stuff in GTA 5 is along those lines, and stuff that was like, I guess that was an observational thing you could have done in like 2005.
Yeah.
But that was 7 years ago, and maybe you should update your material.
I mean, let's be honest. The only people who are going to be upset that it's missing are people who like it.
Yeah.
Just breaking it down to brass tacks. Like
people who like it, or people who think like, oh, how come these people get special treatment?
You mean they're protected versus me or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is an absurd thing to think, because they aren't protected.
Yeah.
And if you look around at what's happening right now in the country, that's the last thing I would describe trans people as, is protected.
Oh, yeah.
So, hey, GTA 5 doesn't make a bunch of gross jokes about trans people anymore. Don't worry. They're going through enough shit as it is.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of states that have already passed a bunch of laws that are going to make their lives miserable enough for you as it is. Don't worry. They don't need Rockstar to help.
Yep. I haven't looked at chat during this whole discussion for a reason. I'm going to take a look now. I hope you guys have been adults in here, and I would trust that our audience is being an adult, because generally you guys are pretty on point, but I don't want to put it up on screen until I take a quick scan. Okay, you guys are being pretty civil in here. Mike's Q says, I think it's a valid choice for them to remove it. I'm glad it's not in there, but why does that one particular group get to escape from having bad, unfunny jokes about them versus other groups?
I would argue they shouldn't be the only group that gets that, but you got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And, the trans thing is a hot topic right now, so it makes sense to sort of deal with that first, I suppose. I can't remember a lot of other jokes in GTA 5 that really made me go, ugh, the way the trans jokes did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't. Especially because, like, I'm going to make an assumption that there were not a lot of trans people on staff helping with that stuff. Like, at least with the character saying the N-word, you generally assume that there are black actors and maybe writers involved in sort of fine-tuning this stuff. And, I highly doubt the lines they removed from the code of the game were spoken by a trans actor. There's a difference there. That makes a difference.
I think another difference would be is that I think the jokes matter, and in this case, the jokes that they removed, they're not reflections on society. They're not satire.
Yeah, they're at the expense of an individual.
Yeah, they're just mean-spirited, bad jokes.
Also, like, they're not it's not like they removed a mission.
Right.
Where you like ran around in drag or something.
Basically.
Like, yeah, it's a weird thing that didn't need to be there and felt malicious in that it was put there.
Yeah.
It's only there because like we couldn't let this game go by without making fun of some of those trans people, right? Yeah. And it's just like, why? Like, what's the like? Why do you want to look like the person who would do that? Is what kind of my question. I asked myself if I was Rockstar at this point. And I think a lot of the changeover of the higher ups there is probably part of this. I bet Sam Houser does think that it should stay, but he doesn't get to make that decision anymore.
Well, it's like I'm half Italian, and like if there's a joke in a Grand Theft Auto game about Italians being greasy or liking pasta or whatever all the stereotypes are about Italians, like it doesn't offend me?
No.
I don't know why.
Partly, because people don't see you as that.
Yeah.
No one's going to look at you on the street and be like, look at that Italian guy going around. Like, that's not a thing in American society at this point. Same way I don't care about Irish jokes because no Irish need apply has been dead for a long time if it ever was a thing. Historically, that there is some question as to whether that's even something that ever happened.
Yeah.
Whereas trans people face discrimination and face horror in terms of how people might react to who they are fundamentally as a person.
Yeah, nobody's rolling
day.
up on me in central Pennsylvania with baseball bats and beating my ass because I'm Italian.
No,
that's the big difference.
Yeah, it's like the difference between like, somebody might make a funny like Italian accent joke or Mario joke at you, whereas like as Eddie Izzard used to say in her old stand-up, I didn't tell anyone that I was a transvestite when I was a kid because I was afraid they might kill me with sticks. And that's a very different experience from like someone might make fun of you and sing "That's Amore" at you. Right? Yeah. So there's a difference in stakes there.
Yeah, big difference. Let's see if anyone else has.
And if we can find a way to make like the mass media, especially the top-selling game of all time, stop encouraging that, I think that's a positive thing. Especially when the company does it all on their own without announcing it unprompted.
Cinetike says correcting things during the working process is quote-unquote censorship now. And then Eric Scott replies, it's not correcting, it's changing a 10-year-old game. I don't understand the difference there.
There isn't one. It is a if you're going to put out a new version of something, you can change. I mean, you might as well say that you can't change the graphics at that point.
Yeah, that's a good point. Ashes in the Hourglass says, I have respect for Rockstar if they go ahead and mock their own toxic fan base in GTA 6, I think they will.
I would argue, I think they definitely will, but also I would argue that Trevor is that. I think Trevor is their comment on how people approach and deal with and play GTA. I think because Trevor is kind of how the stereotypical GTA fan plays GTA, placed in the world to show how crazy that looks. And I think for the most part it worked. I know Trevor's not a likable character, but I think it is a funny comment on sort of the way people play their character in the game versus how Rockstar is trying to portray the story, because Michael's a pretty realistic character, Franklin's a pretty realistic character, and Trevor comes in from some kind of fever dream, and you're like, how does any of this make any sense? But like Trevor's
the method.
Trevor's behavior, he's the method, but Trevor's behavior is not too outside of how we generally play GTA for fun. If you're gonna run around, not do a mission, just mess with the open world, you're basically Trevor.
Yeah,
and I think he was the commentary on that.
Okay.
So I do think they will talk about that in GTA 6 in some way.
Okay. Eric Scott follows up. He says, if they feel they have to tiptoe so as not to hurt anyone's feelings, that will hamper the edginess. I think
that is, again, a slippery...
we addressed that already.
That's the slippery slope fallacy, and it's not a real argument.
Yeah, they can be edgy without having to punch down.
You don't need that. I really doubt that not wanting to offend trans people or make trans people feel small is going to like affect their willingness to mock like Donald Trump or someone who is way at the top of the power echelon. Like that's just not a thing.
Squishy Muffin has a really good comment. He says, someone said you can poke fun at things people can control, but not things they can't.
Yeah.
I think I subscribe to that.
Yeah, that's kind of what I meant. That's sort of another way of saying what I meant about how the humor with the characters comes from who they, like kind of what they do and who they are and not what they are.
I think this goes back to some people believe that being trans or gay is something that people control.
Yeah, I mean, that has been something politicians
I think that is the root of a lot of the problems here, is that there are certain people who believe it's a choice. And
I mean, there was a Republican elected official, I can't remember where he was from, it's one of those states out there, where he basically said, because you can choose to be gay or not, which is false, unless you recall the very compelling Scientific American article that convinced you to like women, boys. I don't remember that. I didn't read. I know I wasn't made straight by a really compelling story in the New Yorker. This didn't happen to me. I'm sorry. I knew that from very young. Yeah. But like basically said, because that's a choice, which it isn't, but they think it is.
The only people who believe that don't know anyone who's gay.
Right, because it's a choice that gay people shouldn't be protected by the Constitution. Which the rhetoric's getting real weird out there, folks. The masks are coming off, and it's going to get ugly in 5 to 10 years. Trust me.
But there's lots of good people out there.
Yeah, women being arrested for murder for having abortions at this point. It's going to be real nasty.
It's getting weird. Yep. Let's see if there's something else.
J.M. Rain has a good point up there too. Scroll up a little bit where he says it'd be different if there were more positive.
Let's let him speak on it.
Yeah.
Is there something before this one?
No, that was what I saw.
This is from J.M. Rain. As a member of the queer community, it would be different if there were positive representations of trans people in media. This would be less of a concern. However, trans people are not portrayed in positive ways anywhere.
Yeah, it's very rare.
100%
I mean,
rare.
maybe the Life is Strange games here and there.
I don't know if they're trans.
I thought there was a trans person in the new one in True Colors.
I
might be misremembering that.
But
yeah, it's super uncommon. You got to go to like the indie scene for anything like like that cyberpunk. It's
changing though.
That cyberpunk bartender game had a lot of trans people in it. That was pretty positive. But yeah, like in terms of like mainstream stuff, very very rare.
I think that's it. You guys were very respectful, and I expected nothing less from our audience because you guys are awesome. That guy B Solo, thank you for Twitch Prime. But I do think that people who believe that being trans or being gay is a conscious decision, they've never known anyone who was trans or gay.
Tell me why. Okay, yeah. Tell me why I had a trans lead. That's right. I was mixing up the don't nod with Life is Strange.
It's easy. I actually do that all the time. In
there
fact,
is still part of me that like weirdly wants to believe Tell Me Why is a Life is Strange game because it's so simple.
I wrote a script and I almost read it. I had attributed a game to Telltale that was a don't nod game. It's very easy to mix up those two studios. So, okay. I think that's it. Let's move on. We're going to talk next about a game that I played this week. The only game that I played this week. And this was just me trying to find something to play to talk with you guys about. Scouring my inbox. I'm like, what code has someone offered me that I can speak on for GameFace 297? And the only thing I could come up with was Hello Neighbor 2. Matt, did you play the first Hello Neighbor at all?
No, but I remember it.
It's the lower third says it all. It's a creep show. Mm-hmm. It's basically a game about sneaking around the neighborhood and peeking in people's windows. I'm not kidding. It's like a peeping Tom simulator because it's a stealth game and you are trying to basically break and enter into people's homes. You need to look into the windows to see where they are in the home so you can figure out if where you're going to enter, you'll be seen by them. Because if you're seen by them, they run up and they grab you and they just reset you out somewhere else and you have to start all over again. Hello Neighbor 1 was a little bit of like an indie underground hit. But I had never played it. Obviously, I had seen it and we had curated a lot of content for it on Sifted. And so I was well aware of it and I knew what the game was. I knew what genre it was, blah, blah, blah. I expected this game to be pretty good, I guess is what I'm getting at. Based upon the first game, which sold pretty well. Had some, some hype around it. This game is awful. Oh my gosh, Matt.
Wasn't the first one like a kind of a streaming hit?
I guess. I don't know why. But this game is so bad. It is. Now, technically, the game is in beta right now, but this was sent to me as a review code, and they're like, you're cleared for takeoff to share your opinions on it. And here I am to tell you, it is so bad. It is a stealth game, and the objective of the game is there are people who have gone missing in your neighborhood, and you're trying to figure out what happened to them and where they went. You play as this guy. He is like part of a local TV news crew, and the game starts. You end up at the TV station where you work at. There's a sort of a billboard of people that are either missing or presumed dead, and it's your job to be the investigative journalist and figure out where they've gone. And so you basically just poke around houses in the neighborhood, and you try to find clues, and then that clue leads to some other clue in some other house. But really, it's a stealth-driven adventure game. Mm-hmm. You're collecting stuff, you're finding something here, you're taking it to this other house where you can use it. Lots of finding keys and things like that in one place, taking the key to another house and using it at the other house. This game is so buggy and so busted that I cannot believe that they sent this out for people to review. I cannot believe it. Like, there's animations that don't work, like clambering, like climbing over something. Like, sometimes you just, like, disappear and reappear and you've climbed over it. There's actually a bug in this game where you can finish the whole game in 25 seconds. You can just climb to the top of this building, smash a window, and go in and get the final object in the game and finish the game. The whole thing is just a busted mess. And it's a stealth game. Pretty much 80% of it is stealth. And the other part of it is like, oh, hey, I found this thing here. Oh, I remember there's this other object over there that I need to go get. And then there's this little, like, it's smeared with, like, supernatural stuff where, like, you just saw there's like this weird flashback of a kid being killed by this weird creature that looks like a crow. And it never really explains what all that stuff is about. But you essentially just literally creep around the neighborhood, looking in windows, trying to figure out how to get inside houses. And there's puzzles to that. Like, sometimes you can only get in, like, an upstairs window or whatever. The first puzzle is figuring out how to get in. And then once you get in, you're trying to avoid the people inside the house while also watching what they're doing for clues. So the first house that you go into, there's a cop sitting there. He's inside the house investigating. He has a key on his hip. So the first thing you do is you go and you grab the key off of his hip. But you also see that he's checking out this door. So you need to lead him away from that door by going to a different part of the house and making a ruckus. He runs over there. While he runs over there, you run to the door and you go down, and that's where you find the first missing person in the game. You go into the basement, you find like a crowbar that gets you out into the yard, and out in the yard there is an empty grave, and that solves one of the missing person cases. The whole game itself is, like, I'm not exaggerating, Matt, like an hour long. This thing's been in development for years. It's completely riddled with bugs, and it's only an hour long.
You sure this isn't like a demo?
No, it's not. It is the final game. It's final. I even emailed them and was like, are you sure we're okay to review this? They're like, yep. I went and checked on YouTube. Dozens of reviews for the game. I am at a loss for words. Just and things just don't work. Like, you have an inventory pouch that you carry around. You can only carry so much stuff. The game doesn't tell you how anything works, like, organically. Like, eventually you get into your bedroom, which is where I'm at right here. That door is to my bedroom. And eventually you get a crowbar, and you can take that thing off the door and get into your bedroom. The inventory in the bedroom is like this shelf, but it doesn't explain that, like, hey, this is where you leave your stuff. It's so weird. Things happen automatically. Like, once you go into your bedroom for the first time and you go to walk out of the house, suddenly you're, like, staring into the window of this other house. Like, but it doesn't explain why. The inventory doesn't work. Like, you choose something from the inventory, it never appears in your hand. At least in the Xbox version, which is the version I'm playing, it never does. And so you don't even know that you have it. And so sometimes you, like, accidentally throw the item instead of using the item where you're supposed to. It is just a disaster. I can't believe they allowed me to review this game based off this code. I cannot believe it. Here's the killer, Matt. The game is $40. $40. And you can buy, like, a special version for $60. It's an hour long.
What's special about it?
Oh, you get like tchotchkes or whatever, in-game items or whatever. $40. This game is maybe worth $10.
The chat's saying it's a beta.
It is the beta. I said that when I first started talking about it.
But it's like just one level, and there's more to it later.
It's that I don't believe so. I solved the whole thing. Like you solved the whole game. And I don't. In the whole
like there's just like the one neighborhood.
You're right. Like why would you go to another neighborhood? You are in your neighborhood at the TV network that you work at in the building, the TV network building. It's review code. In the email they sent it to me, they're like, "Here's your review code for this game." And if you go online, everyone on YouTube's reviewed it and said it's an hour long. Like, I don't know. If they messed that up, that's really embarrassing. I don't know. I'll say this. Let's pretend that this isn't the whole game. The game is still terrible. It's still awful. It gives you very little direction. I've been noticing this with a lot of games lately. And by the way, I should actually bring up that Weird West, Matt, as it turns out, has like bullet time that you can use whenever you want. And I played that game for hours and never discovered it. So that's an amendment to last week's show that I wanted to make sure I brought up in this week's show, is that the gunplay in that game actually is better than I had portrayed last week, because you can go into bullet time pretty much whenever you want in that game. So I wanted to bring that up this week. But it also is like...
Yeah, this is weird. It says the release date is December 6th.
Really?
This year.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah. So what are they sending you this for?
I don't know.
Why are they saying review a beta?
I don't know. But it does say beta right on the screen when you start it. And I mentioned it when we first started talking that it is in beta. But it says it's not coming out till December?
Yeah.
Wow. I don't know. But
so now you can pre-order it. If you pre-order for $40 or $60 for the deluxe, you get the beta now. And so this is what you play until December, I guess.
Interesting. It feels like a full game. Like it finishes everything in this like hour-long game. I don't know. And again, people are reviewing it on YouTube, full reviews. So I don't know. I'll say this: if that's the case, the messaging coming from their PR company is terrible, and they need to find a new PR company.
If you look at the bullet points, it says that there's over 8 hours of gameplay.
Oh, really?
Still doesn't seem like a ton.
That's a lot more, though.
A lot more.
I mean, that would make $40. That makes sense.
Huh.
It's weird. There's no doubt about it.
This thing's been in development forever.
Right. That's what I'm saying. It has been. And I don't know, maybe there's chapters in this, and then the next chapter you just play a completely different character. That's the only way where it would make sense and work. I don't know. But regardless, this game is broken, and they should not let anybody play it right now. It is not a good representation of the game at all.
Seems like maybe wait closer to December to see what they're doing.
Maybe. Yeah. I'm going to email that PR guy when I get back. I'm going to be like, wait a minute, what's going on here? This game doesn't come out till December. You're telling me I can review it now off of this beta. It is weird, too, that there's a beta now and it doesn't come out till December?
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, that best case scenario would be an alpha right now, typically. So I don't know what the hell's going on with this game, but it's a piece of junk right now. I'll tell you that much. And if it's something you've been keeping your eye out for, I would probably scratch it off your list. There's just, like, it's so unfinished. Like, people come up to you, like, and they fade to black, and you just reappear somewhere. Like, it's like, it feels like nothing in the game is complete. And stuff just doesn't work the way it's supposed to. Like, sometimes, like, you'll grab a key, and, like, the first 5 times you try to use the key on a lock, it doesn't work, and the 6th time it does. Just random stuff like that just everywhere. And, to me, this game's a piece of junk, and I would just steer clear from it if at all possible. Erebus says, this is going to be on Game Pass when it comes out, isn't it? I'm sure it was an Xbox SS reveal, wasn't it? I don't know, actually, what it was revealed for, but they did send me Xbox code for it. But I think
it is Game Pass, yeah.
Yeah, but it's coming to every platform.
Yeah.
It's not just PC and Xbox like a lot of kind of Game Pass games are. But, yeah. Hello Neighbor 2. I'd stay out of the neighborhood. It was just awkward and weird. I kept wondering if, like, the game was working the way it was supposed to, if it was glitching out. Definitely not finished. At least I hope it's not finished. If they think this is finished, then I don't know what to tell you. But, yeah, Hello Neighbor 2. I wouldn't say I'm the world's biggest stealth or adventure game fan, but I don't dislike them either. And there's just nothing. This game has no spark to it, I guess is the best way to put it. There's nothing unique or different about it compared to the dozens of games that I've played like this in the past. So I would just say steer clear. I will go back and email the PR person and be like, yeah, what's going on? You told me to review it from this, and now people are saying it's not coming out till December, and I'll figure out what he says, and I'll report back next week here on GameFace and let you know what he says. But again, regardless,
maybe he meant that, like, as long as you have that code, you'll get the final version when that comes out.
Maybe
in December.
It's possible. I don't know. It's weird. I mean, I've been doing this for a long time. Like, I'm pretty good at figuring out whether something is supposed to be reviewed or not. So I don't know. His messaging, it wasn't even like open for interpretation. Like, I wasn't even confused or like I wondered if this was review code. Like, it just was. And then all the anecdotal evidence online suggests the same thing. There's reviews for it all over YouTube. So I don't know. Again, if this is in fact not review code, that PR person made a huge mistake with the emails that he sent out to the press. So there you go. That's Hello Neighbor 2. Next up, and our final topic for today's show is Xenoblade Chronicles 3. We did get one story from today that I got into the show. And Matt, I don't even know if you know this or not, but Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is now launching in July.
Oh, yeah?
Yes.
Moved up?
Yes. Weird. It was originally announced for September. Mm-hmm. And today, this morning, Nintendo announced that it is coming out in July.
You don't see that too often.
I can't remember that ever happening. Can you remember a game ever being moved up?
Not off the top of my head.
Me either.
I think it has happened a couple times, but it's not common.
Like, I'm sure people in chat, you guys can Google it and maybe
maybe they finally
example.
figured out that, like, oh, no, nothing's coming out in the summer, so, let's get something in there.
Yeah. I don't know. I've never seen this before in my life. I'm not complaining because, man, we're going to need it. I'll tell you that much. Maybe by the time July comes around, things will be a little better. But right now, it's like a ghost land for like the ghost town for the next 2 months as far as game releases are concerned. So I'm excited by it. And they also put out this new trailer and released some new information on the game as well. They give like a plot synopsis of the game. I got an email from Nintendo that had a lot of information in it. In the game, players will step into the roles of protagonists Noah and Mio amid turmoil between the nations of Kiev and Agnes. Six characters hailing from those nations join forces to learn the truth behind their conflict and set their sights for Swords March, a land pierced by a giant sword.
That'll do it.
Yep. You can battle with up to 7 characters. Like in previous Xenoblade Chronicles games, battles start by facing enemies directly in the overworld. Players can control Noah's party of 6, as well as additional characters they'll meet during the adventure. Each character has their own role in battle, which allows for diverse strategies. Class change, Noah is a sword fighter specializing in close-range attacks, while Mio is a Zephyr, drawing enemy attention while evading their attacks. Thus, each character has their own class with their own strengths. Progressing in the adventure, players can change character classes, creating a customized party. That's cool. There's a brand new interlinked system where each of the tag team pairs, Noah and Mio, or Lance and Cena, or Uni and Tyon, can make use of the interlinked system if certain conditions are met. They will then combine into a giant form called Ouroboros. And I'm probably mispronouncing this, each Ouroboros has its own powerful moveset, and deciding when to transform can be key to winning a battle. So it sounds like you can Voltron in this game.
Yeah, more or less.
How do you feel about all that information, Matt?
It's got to be better than 2.
I saw someone on the site today, I can't remember who it was a huge fan of these games, and they were talking about how they really liked 2. But there were some tweaks that they had made for 2 that didn't make a lot of sense, and it sounds like they're reverting on those changes for this.
Which is good. Like, 2 had a pretty good battle system, but, like, it's more the aesthetics and the leaning hard into sort of the anime boob thing that I just found.
Yeah, culturally
upsetting.
It was a little off-putting, I think.
This feels like it's kind of taking more of a middle ground between 1 and 2, like, aesthetically, which is cool. Like, that's more like it. There's that thing which really, very Evangelion. Like, they just have never been able to throw off the Evangelion influence at Monolith. But, no, it looks good to me. It certainly looks more promising than 2 or even X to some degree, which is more of a departure. But I'm never going to argue with more Xenoblade, especially this fast.
Yeah, how did they get this done? And we're still waiting for Breath of the Wild 2.
I mean, I don't think they're trying to reinvent the wheel on this one. Like,
yeah,
they're basically just making more Xenoblade. Also, the world's kind of already established. You're on the Bionis and the Mechonis. You're running around on two giant things that the world grew on, which is unique. But this is supposed to kind of show how 1 and 2 are connected. Like, cause
right.
2 takes
yeah, that
place
was what they said with the first trailer they put out.
So far after 1 that you're like, well, how did he get to this? So I assume they'll be a little connective tissue here. And of course, the big thing about Xenoblade is always sort of the worlds you get to explore, and they always feel like these big, huge, epic places. Like the sense of place of Xenoblade is pretty much unmatched.
Of all Nintendo's franchises, I do feel like this is one of them that will benefit the most from Nintendo having modern hardware.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. This game looks damn good, especially for a Switch game.
Yeah.
But imagine if this was built for PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series. This game would
I'd
look
rather
like.
not imagine that because it's just sad.
Nolan Elric says Sifu moved up 2 weeks. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, and Congram says, once Red Dead Redemption 2 announced its launch date, everyone got scared and moved their day in front of it. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember that. But I think this is the only one I can think of that moved months up.
Yeah, I've seen days or maybe a week or 2.
That means they must be pretty much done already.
Oh, it's definitely done. I mean, it's got to be going through certification and ESRB ratings and all that stuff now.
Oh, and I think there was a certification confirmation of God of War in Portugal, which is almost always 5 to 6 months before release.
Oh, snap.
So I think October.
Uh-oh. That's exciting. That's really exciting, actually. Yeah. Congram says, I find these games a bit hard to take seriously. All the characters look underage and out of place for that reason. I don't think this game is as bad in that way.
No, and I think the first one gets away with it because you are supposed to basically be kids.
Right.
You're supposed to be older teenagers wandering out into the world. The second one just was
It
nonsense.
was egregious.
It was
and I felt dirty playing that game.
And even aside from that, none of it made any so he's like a 16-year-old kid who does deep dive salvage operations in a suit with no pants. What? I don't understand what you're doing. It was just somebody let the character designer run amok and tried to fill in the gaps afterward, and it just didn't work.
A bunch of jerks says it happened with Resident Evil 6. How long was it pushed up? Was it a month? I don't remember that at all, actually.
I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to Resident Evil 6, I admit. It's also real close, to the release. It's...
Yeah, to push it up when now it's only a couple months away from us playing it.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. I'm excited about that. I didn't see anything in the trailer where they're, doing the Voltron thing, did you?
They form into kind of a giant mechy looking thing.
That has to be it then.
It's a big purple guy, and you see him fighting a big thing in a battle shot, and he's that thing.
Oh, okay.
And it's it's clearly much bigger than the other characters, and is
I wonder if that means you'll be fighting kaiju once you transform into that.
I mean, you've fought some pretty giant things in the Xenoblade game, so yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
But I mean,
taking some pages out of Bayonetta 3.
Exactly, yeah, where you're also in big form. I know you fight massive enemies in this game.
I mean, that seems like a pretty natural move, especially. It also seems like maybe they're taking a page out of X for that because the mechs in X.
Oh, right, that's right. Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah, I spent 15 hours getting your mech, and then you're like, wait, this isn't any better now, and I have to pay for fuel now. So.
Yep. Swanland says, aren't they delaying Splatoon 3? Could this be a way to switch up the empty space? I was not aware of that, actually.
It could be.
Vincent says, RE6 moved up from November 20th to October 2nd. So it moved up.
It's almost 2 months.
Yeah, that's a pretty big move. Okay. I was not aware of that at all, actually. I don't know how
I forgot if I ever knew it in the first place.
Well, it's one of those cases where they're like, oh, I've forgotten more than you know. I've forgotten so much stuff that happened throughout the years. It's hard to keep track of it all. This industry is constantly changing and evolving as it is, even without little separate news stories like that. So, you excited for this game, Matt?
Yeah. I mean, it definitely seems to be making the adjustments that I would have made off of 2. Tone down the weird fan service waifu crap and give me an actual sci fantasy epic tale.
Yeah,
and it seems to be delivering on that. And the main character isn't even wearing anything embarrassing.
I'm excited for it. I think it looks good.
Yeah,
and I've liked the first Xenoblade Chronicles a lot.
Yeah, I think it's one of the best JRPGs of the century.
I'd agree.
And it's nice. This looks like a much more reasonable follow up to that one.
Agreed.
So.
Yep. So again, it's coming in July now instead of September. So set your wallet accordingly. Mm-hmm. And with that, it's time to move on to Name That Game. Once again, we are giving away a free, a DRM free code of Tunic for today. That means it's playable on PC or Mac. The way the game works is I show you a series of images and you try to guess the name of the game. You are playing against Matt Kyle. If he guesses it and I look over and it's already in the chat, you guys win. In fact, even if it's like a beat or two later that someone chimes in with the name of the game, then you guys will get the win. It's pretty simple. The images, at least I try to make them vague at first, and then the last image is like if you can't get the game from that, then you're an idiot. So last week everybody got it on the first image in like 2 seconds. I'm hoping I can do a little better this time. I took all your feedback into account. A lot of you guys left comments in the archive of the show last week, letting me know how I can improve it. I listened to your comments, and I've made some changes, and I hope that I've done a better job. We'll see how that goes. But anyway, here we go with Name That Game. All right, let me bring up the chat here for everyone to see. Well, actually, I need to bring up the image.
You're going to show me the picture.
Yep. All right, here we go with the first image for Name That Game, and go. We'll leave each one up for like 10 or 15 seconds. This is for VideoGames Got It. The first image.
Portal?
Yes. How?
I guess the hanging wires do look like that.
Someone else guessed Metroid Prime.
Yeah, Metroid Prime was actually my first.
Yeah, and I thought that too, but like, jeez.
I mean, there's some people.
Dude, it's so hard to.
People play Portal a lot.
I mean, so did I, but dude, it's just cables hanging from a fucking ceiling. Dude, that's crazy.
Do you have the full shot?
No, I don't.
You should have the full shot to cut to.
Oh.
So you can see, like, work. It's to show like how far you zoomed in or whatever.
I mean, you can tell, like, it's the ceiling of a screenshot, basically. Mm-hmm. Jeez, this is ridiculous. You guys are just too good, man. I'm not going to do this anymore. It's no fun. I do all this work, and it's over in like 2 seconds. Here's the rest of the images.
That's why game shows suck. That was like Portal 2.
It's Portal.
It's the first one?
Yeah.
I don't remember the overgrowth in Portal 1. But I haven't played Portal 1 in like 15
And see, I'm
years.
like leaving little clues. Like this second one, to make it easier, I left a little shade of the machinery in over there on the right-hand side. Like, I put a lot of thought into these. LO, that was so easy. The cake right there. Where's the cake?
On the screen.
What?
That's a picture of the cake. On the screen.
Oh.
That's the strawberries on the cake.
Oh, no, come on. Like, you're not going to be able to tell that that's what it is.
I mean, if you know that cake.
I guess.
I thought it was like a face with a bunch of eyes.
I just thought it was like, I didn't even pick up that it was a cake.
No, that's like the iconic cake from Portal now that they mentioned.
Well, no, I mean, here's the last image.
Right, so there it is.
But, I mean, that doesn't look like a cake to me. It looks like something under a microscope or something.
To some people, that is one of the most iconic things in the history of video games. So it'd be like saying, like, oh, that's a close-up of Mario's hat. How can we could tell that's his hat? But, like, you know it by, you know,
I mean, that's easy, though.
So is that, if you're that familiar with Portal.
And then here was the third one. I included the red button.
Yeah.
And I thought that might have given away.
The modular piece.
See, I had to be very careful, too, because if I left the reticle in any of these screenshots, someone would have got it right away, because the reticle in the game is very...
The orange and the blue. And
It's like I put so much thought into this, and it doesn't effing matter. It's like I work hard on these things, and in 2 seconds, it's like over. Here's the fourth screenshot. I also just had a little piece in the corner there.
Corner of the gun.
Yeah. Yep. And then the last one was the cake. This takes all the fun out of it. Well, crap. Okay. Well, this is for video games. Send us a DM. And we'll send out the code. It's so disappointing. It's so hard to do this. You guys are just too good. Like, I don't know if this game works. Like, I just don't think it does. The people, our chat, our audience is just too smart and too good. I think that's just really what it comes down to.
Oh, don't apologize to him.
Yeah, you don't have to apologize. It's not your fault. I'm glad that somebody won. I'd rather have somebody win on the first one than not get it at all. But I obviously, if I put this screenshot up and nobody
you're gonna get that,
they were definitely going to get it. So, all right. Well, that's disappointing. I tried, guys. I really did try. I tried to make it fun. And I couldn't even make it to the second image. Dang. You just need to make it harder. How do you make it harder, dude? What are you talking about?
Well, don't use a picture of the most iconic thing.
I had no idea that's what it was, Matt.
Yeah.
I had no clue that's a cake. Look at that image.
Yeah, but these are the people you're up against.
But also, Matt, look at the picture of the cake. Look at that. That's purple. The cake is not purple, dude.
Yeah, but it's a distortion of the screen.
But how do you know that's a cake?
Because
it doesn't look like the cake.
But there's
and it doesn't look like a cake.
I don't know what to tell you, man. There's a contingent of people who, when they see that pattern of things, are going to think of the Portal cake no matter what.
It's bizarre. Okay, well, there you go.
I'm going to try to find a way to zoom in on the Steelers logo that you can't tell what it is. And I bet you'll be able to always tell what it is.
Well, no, obviously. But that's different, dude.
I don't think it is.
If you change the colors, I'll say this. If you change the colors of the Steelers logo like that is, I mean, that's different. That's purple.
Yeah, but you're seeing it on a distorted screen.
It doesn't matter, though.
It does. Apparently it does.
Anyway, that's frustrating. Really frustrating from my perspective. You guys knew how much time I spent on that for it to end in like 2 seconds. That really sucks. Seriously, though, it sucks. Okay, well, it's time for Q&A. Don't ask me anything about Portal, though. And this is for video games. Send us a DM here on Twitch, or you can send me one on Twitter at Dinfire, or you can send me one on the site at Shane, and we'll get the code out to you ASAP. And congratulations for winning. In fact, I forgot to play your round of applause for winning. Congratulations, man. You did a great job. But everyone with their suggestions in here, they're not making me feel better. So I don't feel like anyone ever puts anything in our chat to make me feel better. I feel like they're always like prodding me. Am I crazy for thinking that?
I don't think so. But
no? I feel that way. Anyway, congrats, bro. Let's get to some Q&A. See what you guys got for us. JM Rain gifting the tier 1 subs. Thank you, my brother.
500.
Oh, wow. What? A total of 500 in the channel all time. That's amazing, dude. Thank you, man. Thanks, JM Rain. That's awesome, man. I really appreciate it. Vincent, after diving into Hello Neighbor 2 this week, are you going to head lower and play Postal 4 next week? No. I saw the reviews for that today. I'm not.
Is that coming out?
Yeah, some reviews went up today. They're up on Sifted, and it got murdered. It's not good. Surprise, surprise. Minority Games. Any JRPGs you're excited to play? We just talked about one.
Xenoblade.
Yeah. Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Absolutely. Are there any others besides those? Yeah. Forspoken. I think that's a JRPG.
I wouldn't call that a JRPG.
Well, it's Square Enix trying to not make JRPGs.
No, that's an action-adventure game. That's not a JRPG.
I think it is an action RPG.
I mean, it's got JRPGs are anime.
Yeah.
Or turn-based, or kind of like you're talking about Genshin Impact style stuff, which I know is Korean, but no. Like Tales of Final Fantasy, those are JRPG. Dragon Quest, I don't consider Dark Souls a JRPG outside of the fact that it's an action RPG made in Japan. That's not the same thing.
Okay.
If you can call these stupid things immersive sims, JRPG can mean something more specific than RPG made in Japan.
Fair enough. Call of Duty says, our brains are weird. I can remember obscure shit from video games 20 years ago, but I can't remember my email password.
Yeah.
Podif says, zoom into the image very deep. I did. I literally...
Yeah, that is a definite zoom. You can tell from the
I zoomed way in on these, but I don't want to just make it like this smear of colors.
Pixels.
Like, there's a balance that you have to walk when you do this, and apparently I'm walking on the wrong side of it.
I mean, you got unlucky with the picture of the cake.
Yeah.
That's all.
Really, that's what happened. What was in that screen? Norix Nessie 94. What do you think of the rumor of Microsoft paying for chip priority? Do you feel this is a bad practice or just business? First of all, I do not believe it.
Yeah, I don't think that's really a thing.
I do not believe that is true. I think that somebody made that up. I don't think it's a thing. I think that was just an Xbox fan, like, trying to understand why there aren't Xboxes on why Xboxes are staying in stock, and PlayStation's not.
Yeah, because they're just not.
Because they're just not as in demand.
But they're not as in demand as PS5s.
Right. Yeah, I don't.
And PS5s probably are lower in availability just because they are a more complicated build and use more specialized stuff.
They're using AMD has the same chips that is sending to both.
But I don't see any evidence. Have not been presented or seen any evidence that the AMD chips are the things holding the PlayStation production back.
Right.
We don't know what's doing that.
Yeah. But yeah, just
if it's even happening.
Yeah. You know? I don't think that's true. No. If it were true, how would I feel about it? I wouldn't care.
I mean, that's business.
It is business. Like, I wouldn't care if it were true, and I wouldn't begrudge Microsoft.
Having more money in the war chest is a business advantage, and that's just how it is.
It's just the same reason it was able to buy Activision Blizzard,
or the same reason PlayStation got Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah, like and the same reason
Sony threw money at people until they left Nintendo.
Yep. Same reason that they were managed to buy Bethesda, and other people couldn't. Other companies couldn't. Yep. It's unfortunately
finally got Blizzard. You see the thing that they tried like 2 other times and got rebuffed or shut down, and now they finally got it.
Yep.
That's apparently all they wanted was Blizzard.
Next level. Do you think we will get big game announcements in June without E3?
Yeah. I think they're going to still do like some presentational stuff. There's going to be Jeff's stuff. Like, there'll be some things.
Yeah. I think there will be. I don't know if define big, I guess I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, at the very least, Nintendo's got to tell us what the second half of the year looks like.
Yeah. I mean, we're starting to get a kind of an idea
We'll probably get a God of War reveal in May because, Sony traditionally does do a big reveal of their big game of the year.
It'll be interesting if they let Jeff do that. Or if they do it with their own.
I would imagine they do it on their own
state of play or something.
State of play. Yeah, they've always done. The last few years they've done a state of play reveal of like their big game of the year. I don't think maybe they didn't do it much last year, but they did it with Last of Us 2 and Horizon. They did Horizon last year.
Yeah,
which was supposed to be the big game of the fall until it got delayed.
Yep. So yeah, I think they'll be big, like massive. I wouldn't commit to that. I think a lot of these publishers are gonna reserve that stuff for their own shows, and I think that what we're seeing already is those shows look like they're going to be stretched out. Like, I think
that's happening again.
I saw that THQ Nordic already announced its like E3 thing for like August. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think that stuff's going to be more stretched out.
They seem to mean it when they say summer.
Yeah, like you got 3 months to get it done, basically. Yeah. Congram 1, the recent content patch in Final Fantasy 14, and I like that you use Roman numerals. There was a limited area of housing plots to be handed out in a lottery system. There was an error, and people freaked out, asking for employees to be reprimanded and fired. What? How did I miss this? After hearing the discussion of NFTs and crypto, good connection, do you think ownership of these digital assets are causing an unhealthy obsession? For some people,
Some people don't really seem to have a control over their responses to that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Like they feel, I think it's a lot of FOMO.
Yeah.
Because I think they're looking at it like real estate. Where there's only so much land, and if you don't get it,
more digital continent.
Yeah, like, you can always just slap another tile on to the other side of the world.
Like, there's no reason to make it limited. Like like a lot
it's false.
Yeah, a lot of games solve that by just everybody goes in the same house, and you get loaded into your personal one.
And I can see where the connection between the crypto and the NFT is coming from because NFTs, it's false scarcity.
Yeah.
You're creating the scarcity. It's not that it's actually scarce. You're just like, I'm not going to make more so that it's more valuable. Yeah.
And the false scarcity of that doesn't really seem to appeal to people for the most part, unless you're already invested. Like, I mean, that was what Shroud of the Avatar tried to trade on. That Lord Garriott thing that got sold off a couple years ago. But like, the whole thing was like you got to have player housing, and it was like the Kickstarter, you got to reserve your house, and like you're guaranteed a plot of land in this area or that area. And I was like, and in the end, nobody cared.
Yeah,
like it doesn't matter. Like, and so this is an easy fix. It's ridiculous to think people should be fired over it.
No, that's absurd.
It's
absurd.
Very silly.
These people have families and kids. Hey, take this guy's job away because I didn't get some.
Because I didn't get my imaginary house. Like, go away.
Grow up.
Go.
I think that's a big part of the problem.
You
These
play
people
that game,
aren't grown-ups. They're like tweens or whatever.
You want to play that game, go buy some spaceships at Star Citizen.
Yeah. Erebus Jones, with the war in Ukraine looking very likely to continue for some time, unfortunately, that is really starting to hit home at this point. I really was hoping that when Russia started withdrawing from Kyiv, that might be a sign that maybe things are going to wrap up, but no. It was just them pulling back to attack somewhere else. Dirty scumbags. Anyway, how do you think Nintendo is going to sit on Advance Wars rebooted indefinitely? Surely not. No.
I mean, they delayed it again today. But who knows? I mean, they don't really need to release it. You know,
right.
It's not the cornerstone of any of their financial plans, so they can kind of hold it until they feel it's appropriate.
Maybe the better question is, when will it be okay for it to be released? Because, like, if Nintendo released Advance Wars, I wouldn't be offended. Would you?
No, I mean, I think they're holding it back because there's an equivalent nation of Russia that is very belligerent.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. I forgot about that part.
So, like, I think that's the key. It's not just because there's a war in it. It's because there's a stand-in for a Russian, very thinly veiled Russian stereotype nation that is actively an aggressor in it. And I would imagine they will hold that until they feel that either the situation is over or the situation has sort of settled into just the way things are, or maybe we'll never see it. Who knows? Like, there's some games that never came out after 9/11.
That's true.
So
yeah, or were altered. Twitch for Fun, thank you for gifting a sub to one of our community members. That's awesome. Erebus Jones, thank you for subscribing with Twitch Prime and for asking a great question. GameSpot gave Postal 4 a 1.
Wow.
So yeah, I won't be playing that one. I'll pass on that one. That's crazy. Sound Wizard, thank you for gifting subs to our viewers. That's awesome. Lesteved, Sonic 2 review. I loved it with my kids. No, I still haven't seen it, unfortunately.
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
I imagine I probably won't until it comes to
me
streaming.
Either. Yeah, I'll watch it on video. I did watch the... people always ask me about horror movie recommendations. I did just watch, in the last week, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre reboot.
Yeah, I didn't hear anything good about that.
And neither had I. And then I watched it, and it was not as bad as I was led to believe. There is one scene in that movie that is terrifying. He gets on a bus, and people can't get off the bus. And he has a chainsaw. That's terrifying.
Bad situation.
It is a bad situation to be in. And it goes on for like 15 minutes. I was like, okay, like, I'll say this, like, the gore in that, if you're a little gorehound like I used to be, it's pretty good. I watched the whole thing without turning it off, so...
You can gorehound, but you'd wince at the Mortal Kombat fatalities?
No, wait, what?
You've expressed the idea that the Mortal Kombat fatalities are too much at times.
Yeah, I think they are. Because they show, like, the whole anatomy thing, like the X-ray anatomy crap.
I think that's part of the joke, though. Cause
maybe.
It doesn't actually look like that. We're much messier inside than Mortal Kombat would leave you to believe.
Deadly Virus isn't Gamescom in August. It is in August. Yep. Yeah. And it's in person this year.
We'll probably get some good stuff from Europe.
Yeah.
The European devs do save some stuff from that. And now they have even more reason to save something good for Gamescom because there's no E3.
I think he's mentioning, though, that we were talking about how E3 is going to be dragged out.
Yeah.
And so maybe he's saying that the THQ Nordic thing is actually a press conference for Gamescom instead of E3, which makes sense. Yeah. Eviloni 5. What do you think is the future of id Tech?
I don't know. I don't even have a theory on that one. I think they'll probably just keep making Doom games with it.
Or, I mean, maybe he's asking, like, are they going to move to Unreal? Are they just going to get rid of that engine because now they've been assimilated into the Microsoft board?
Yeah, I think that engine has its place.
I think it does, too. And I think Microsoft has been more than willing to let studios do their thing, to the detriment at Undead Labs. But
yeah, I thought of Undead Labs as soon as you said that. Yeah.
Maybe they should give that engine to Undead Labs.
This one moves fast.
JM Rain, since you give us so many subs, we'll definitely answer your question. Why are there so many 99-cent pro Jesus games on PS5? What?
I
had not caught on to that trend.
There's a lot of weird shovelware stuff, that pops up. I assume that Sony has just removed all content evaluation.
It sounds like all the checks and balances are gone.
Yeah, Legend of Black Tiger doesn't seem like it was all that unusual anymore. So
yeah, it used to be an anomaly, but not anymore. Matter.
I mean, the Switch store is the same way. It's just, I mean, not so much Jesus games, but it's just like I can't believe I'm looking at a Nintendo store and there's that many like softcore porn games on it. It's just endless.
Yeah. I mean, right now, obviously, the timing with Easter, maybe that's why you're seeing them.
Yeah, it could be pushing the algorithm, be pushing that up.
Yeah, or it could just be that they all released them in the last 2 months, knowing that Easter was coming. And it is
the time of year.
It is. Yes, absolutely.
He is risen, but the prices are lower than they've ever been. 99 cents.
Let's see. Rigor Mortis UK. Why do you think we aren't being shown any real gameplay of Starfield at this point? Surely we should have seen more by now. By more, you mean any. Because there hasn't been any.
I would argue you don't need to.
Yeah, I mean...
Even traditionally in the last, 10 years or so, Bethesda, even independently, has moved into, we're going to show you this thing at E3, and then you're not really going to see a whole lot until it comes out.
Usually they don't announce the game that early. They announce it, and it's out in, a month or two.
Yeah, but this one, you need to do it a little different because it's a new IP.
Yeah.
But, people are plenty excited, and people will pay attention whenever they put that gameplay reveal up.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Yep.
Also, that seems to be kind of a trend overall, we just got the first teaser for Thor yesterday, and that movie comes out in 2.5 months.
Yeah, that's a shift.
So
yeah,
because they don't need
it anymore.
Because they wanted to focus on marketing Doctor Strange, which comes out next week.
Yep.
Or 2 weeks from now, and then you'll worry about Thor. Thor's going to sell itself. Starfield is already good. The core demographic knows it's there. They're excited about it, and then you'll run the ads in the last month or 6 weeks before release on NFL games and everything, and that's how it works.
Social media, you don't need as much time anymore.
No, you really don't. The runway has gotten shorter and shorter.
Yeah, you can get it done real quick. Cinetyke, why did the Japanese gaming market shrink so much over the years? Following today's Good Morning Gaming episode. Yeah, so the top selling game in Japan last year sold less than 3 million copies. That's pretty crazy. And there was a handful that sold around that. Actually, I think it's 2.5 or 2.3 million or something.
What was it?
Monster Hunter Rise.
Oh, of course.
But man, it's crazy.
Mobile has taken that market over in such a huge way.
Yep. You go to Tokyo Game Show now, it's more than half mobile. Yeah. And when we first started going to Tokyo Game Show, it was 10 or 15%.
It was just E3 2, basically. Yeah. And by 2010, it was just mobile
almost
stuff.
Half and half. Yeah. It's just the way it is.
It's just mobile stuff and stuff you'd already seen at other things.
The one thing I don't think people understand if they've never been to Japan is that people don't spend time at home, generally. Yeah. Now, there are some people that do. But generally, people do not spend time at home. They get up, they get on the train, they go to work. When they get off work, they go to a bar or a restaurant.
They go out somewhere.
Yeah, and they eat
entertainment
dinner,
is almost universally out.
Yep, have a couple beers. That's why they made the GameCube the way they did, because people. Another reason why people don't care that they have small apartments there is because they're hardly there. They're basically just going there to sleep. So it's just a different culture, and they're always on the go, and that's why you see mobile exploding, and that's why you see the Switch being successful while everything else tanks. And PS5 is tanking in Japan, is doing awful. And every console, unless it's a portable like Nintendo's, is going to do terrible.
Yeah, but Sony has begun to accept that it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You don't need to worry about being successful in the home country anymore if you're going to sell millions overseas.
Yep. Nolan Elric, Elden Ring Legend Let Me Solo Her has been modded into the game as an NPC summon.
That's just a mod somebody added. That's not a real. That's not a.
Yeah, it's not official from software stuff. It's just a PC version. Yeah, that whole saga of Let Me Solo Her is pretty cool though. Mm-hmm. And for those of you who don't know, there's this one boss that everyone has trouble with, and there's this guy that has made it his mission to help people defeat the boss. And you just summon him, and he comes in and beats the boss for you, and you go on your way. It's cool. I think it's a really cool story. Deadly Virus Evo with inflation and rising wages. Rising wages? Where are the rising wages at?
I don't know.
I don't see any rising wages. When will Microsoft be forced to increase the price of Game Pass? I mean, I don't think inflation has an impact on Game Pass.
I don't think that's really going to matter there.
No. I don't think it's going to happen. iViz, thank you for subscribing with Twitch Prime. That's awesome. Minority Games, thank you for all the bits, man. That's sweet. Do we have anything else? Oh, Squishy Muffin, would Matt be up for streaming games for the channel?
Yeah.
I think if he wanted to do that, he would have volunteered by now.
Yeah.
That's pretty much how I look at Matt with Sifted, is if he wants to do something, he'll offer to do it. And if by now he hasn't offered to do it, he probably doesn't want to do it. Okay, I think that's it. That's GameFace 297. Just a few more episodes until episode 300, which I'm still trying to figure out what the hell we're going to do.
It's still past 4. So we still made the usual time.
Yeah, we had a lot more topics today because I knew we were going to need them. Mm-hmm. And we can talk forever, no matter what. So I had a feeling we were going to make it to the full time. I didn't know how excited people would be by the topics, but hopefully you guys enjoyed the show. I enjoyed today. I thought we had a great discussion on a bunch of stuff and talked about some things that we don't normally talk about when we have a bunch of games. If you're listening to this show on any of the podcast services out there, and it's on all of them, head by patreon.com/sifted and drop us a pledge. We really appreciate it. Our Patreon numbers are really low. If you want to see the show continue, you got to invest in it. You got to put some cash in the game. You got to put some skin in the game, or the show's going to go away. I'm just being honest. So again, head to patreon.com/sifted and drop us a pledge. If you're broke, I've been there. I'm kind of there right now. I understand that. You can help us for free by subscribing with Twitch Prime. If you're watching the show on YouTube, everything to do that is below in the show description. While you're at it, like the show, subscribe, ring the bell, all that other crap that I hate saying. Please do it because it makes a difference. We're trying to save Sifted here. So anything that you can do to help the show, review the show on iTunes or on Google Podcasts or on iHeartRadio or anywhere else you find the show. The reviews help. I did see that some of you guys went and did that after I talked about it last week. Thank you very much. What happens is when people search for video game podcasts, the shows that have the most reviews and the highest scores get propped up in the results, and people can discover our podcast that way. And that's our biggest problem is discovery. We have no money to market, so everything has to be through social media, through word of mouth, through you guys, because we just don't have the cash to market to get the word out there. So we keep working our butts off here, hoping things are going to turn around. You guys can be a big part of that, and I hope that you guys will do whatever you can to help. I really appreciate it. And with that, I think we're ready to call it a day. I cannot even comprehend what the show will be like next week because I looked at the release schedule, and there's really nothing coming out for quite a while. So
yeah, you might want to start telling me what you're going to play so we can at least be on the same page for things.
Because we probably do not, like, for instance, both of us did not want to play Hello Neighbor 2. I can promise you that much. That's for damn sure. But thanks to everyone who's on the chat, on the stream. Thanks for everyone who gave out bits. JM Rain, you're awesome. Every week you come in here and you give out subs. Thanks to everybody who subscribed with Twitch Prime during the show today. It makes a difference for us. We really appreciate it. We'll see you next Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern at twitch.tv/siftedgames. Until then, GameFace is up and out.